久しぶりだな。
The episode opens with the Straw Hat Pirates riding down Reverse Mountain into the Grand Line when they are suddenly engulfed in a fog, but they didn't seem to mind. Just then, Zoro hears a strange noise, though Nami says it's probably just the wind. Then Sanji claims he sees a mountain at the end of the path they were heading down. However, when the fog clears, they find out that it wasn't a mountain, it was a huge whale. At the rate they were going, they'd hit it straight on and crash. Zoro tells them to try to head for an opening off to the left, but Usopp says that the helm is still broken from before they arrived at the mountain. Zoro heads over to help, but then Luffy gets a good idea and heads down below deck. Meanwhile, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji are all trying to pull the helm in the direction they want to, but it won't budge. They were all about the crash, when suddenly Luffy fires a cannon. While everyone is shocked, Luffy asked if they stopped. While it did slow down, the ship still crashed into the whale, but the only thing broken was the head, to which Luffy was outraged it was his special seat. All the while, the whale didn't react at all. Zoro yelled out to make a run for it while it still didn't notice them. While they were rowing past its eye, Luffy, in a burst of fury, punched it directly in the eye. After a few seconds, the whale finally looked down at them. Luffy kept shouting out how he'll kick its ass. The rest of the crew kept telling him to shut up. The whale then began to suck in the water around its mouth, and with it, the Straw Hats. Luffy fell overboard, but grabbed onto one of the whale's teeth before he could hit the water. He then began to climb up the whale, as the rest of the crew was swallowed alive. Luffy, who was now sitting on top of the whale, began pounding it and telling it to let his friends go, but the whale was beginning to submerge underwater. Luffy began yelling louder and louder, until he finally noticed a door on top of the whale. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew found themselves in front of a small island in the middle of green waters with a clear blue sky overhead. Suddenly, a giant squid pops up out of the water, but someone or something that was apparently living on the small island quickly killed it. Nami wanted to go home, and Usopp wished Luffy were there, he'd know what to do. Nami then began to wonder what happened to him. At the same time, Luffy found himself in some sort of passageway, very confused. Back at the small island, someone walked out of the house on the island and revealed himself to be an old man. The Straw Hats stared at the old man, and the old man stared back as he pulled in the giant squid and started to walk over to a chair and began to read the newspaper. Sanji yelled at him, telling him to say something. Usopp then spurted out that they'd give him a fight he wanted. Suddenly, a few dramatic shots are shown, and then the old man suggests not to fight, otherwise someone would have died. Nami and Usopp panicked at this, though Zoro and Sanji looked calm. Then Sanji questioned who would be the one dying, and the old man simply replied that he would be the one. Sanji started getting very frustrated with the old man, but Zoro calmed him down and tried talking to the old man himself. He asked him where they were and who was he. Suddenly, the same dramatic sequence happened again, and the old man replied by saying if they want to know something about someone, it's only proper to introduce oneself first. However, before Zoro could introduce himself, the old man already said his name was Crocus. He is the keeper of the Twin Capes lighthouse. He's 71.5 years old, a Gemini, and his blood type is AB. With this, Zoro got frustrated too. Crocus then goes on to say that this is his one-man resort, and that they were saying such rude things to him. Usopp, again, questions if they are really in a whale's belly. Nami begins to panic, again for worry of being digested. Crocus then begins to go through the dramatic sequence again, but the Straw Hats tell him to stop doing that, and Crocus asks them to appreciate a good running gag. He then points out an exit doorway, to which the Straw Hats find strange what is a giant door doing in a whale's stomach. And why is it on the sky? It was then that they realized that the scenery was painted on. Crocus admitted that was his doing, and he liked having fun, to which Usopp started getting annoyed with him. Then suddenly, everything started to shake and rock around, with Crocus saying that it started. It was then Nami noticed that the island was actually made of iron and chained down. Usopp asked what started, and Crocus replied that the whale Laboon has started to ram against the red line. Nami then came to the realization that the whale is in pain, remembering that it has many scars on it, and it bellowed into the sky. Usopp and Nami then came to the conclusion that Crocus might be trying to kill the whale from the inside out. Zoro, however, says that they should just get out of there before the ship dissolves. Meanwhile, elsewhere inside the whale, two mysterious individuals were sneaking around carrying guns. The Straw Hats tried to reach the doorway, but the waves were too big. Just then, Crocus dived into the liquid and began swimming off deep into the stomach. Meanwhile, Luffy was beginning to get knocked around with the whale ramming into the mountainside. He then fell into a tunnel, with possibly the same liquid flowing between two walkways. While Luffy was questioning what it could be, The tunnel slanted downward, and Luffy fell yet again. Meanwhile, back with the two individuals from before, who revealed themselves to be Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, Mr. Nine commented that their infiltration so far has been a complete success. They stand on the other side of the same doorway, Mr. Nine saying that they need to eliminate the old geezer for the whale's sake. Miss Wednesday agreed, saying that their town needs the whale. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, Crocus emerged from it and began climbing up the side of the whale's stomach. Back on the other side, Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday were about to get through, when Luffy fell on top of them, and they flew through the doorway and fell into the digestive juice. Meanwhile, Crocus walked off to the disclosed area, where he kept a gigantic needle filled with sedative and injected some into the whale in order to make him stop. While he says this, he talks to the whale, saying no matter how hard he hits the wall, he won't break through it. Meanwhile, back with the Straw Hats, they saved Luffy, along with the two individuals, and Zoro asked who they were. Crocus then entered the stomach again, telling the two that they won't lay a finger on Laboon the whale. The two said that killing the whale was their mission, and they won't let him interfere anymore. They immediately shot 2 cannonballs from their bazookas in order to rip a hole in the whale's stomach, but Crocus ran over and took the cannonball dead on. The two began to laugh at him, saying that they'll kill the whale to feed their town, when Luffy suddenly knocked them both out cold, saying he just had to hit them. Later on, Crocus thanked Luffy for helping him, but Luffy said he didn't help, he just didn't want to see that happen. Nami asked who those two were and what they were doing inside the whale. Crocus explained that the two were from a nearby town and they want the whale's meat, saying that Laboon the whale could feed their town for 2 to 3 years. He also explained that Laboon is an island whale, which inhabit the West Blue and are the largest species of whale in the world. He also says there's a reason why he keeps bashing his head against the red line and why he bellows at the mountain. He explains that he is a whale with a heart like a person, and the episode ends with him has been waiting for a certain group of pirates for 50 years. Crocus begins to tell the story of Laboon to the Straw Hat Pirates. He explains that Laboon has been waiting for a group of pirates for over 50 years. 50 years ago, Laboon came along with a group of pirates known as the Rumbar Pirates. The pirates did not wish to bring the young whale in their dangerous journey and wanted to leave it in West Blue, where it originally inhabited, but it had followed the pirates on their journey. To Laboon, the pirates were like its own family. The Rumbar Pirates stayed in the Reverse Mountain for a few months to repair their ship, during which Crocus became friends with them. Once they were ready to leave on their journey, they asked Crocus to look after Laboon and left him in the care of Crocus, promising to return back after 3 years. The captain of the ship asked Laboon to wait for them, and promised him that no matter what happens in their journey, they would come for him and he is still their friend. The scene shifts back to Straw Hat Pirates. They finally understand why Laboon has been bellowing and ramming his head against the wall. Crocus reveals that he is a doctor and has been treating Laboon's wound from the inside. Luffy immediately asks him to become the doctor of his crew, to which Crocus declines, reasoning that he is no longer as young as he used to be. Crocus finally let them out of Laboon through a tunnel, and the Straw Hat Pirates briefly discuss on the possibility of the Rumbar Pirates' death. Usopp declines on the possibility of their death and believes that they are indeed alive and will come back for Laboon. Crocus, however, says that the pirates possibly ran away from Grand Line and will not be returning back for Laboon. The Straw Hat Pirates further discuss that the pirates running away and not fulfilling their promise of coming back for Laboon, and question Crocus why he did not tell Laboon about the pirates' betrayal, as he is perfectly capable of understanding human speech. Crocus tells them that he indeed tried, but the whale refused to listen to him. Sanji tells him that since Crocus himself got betrayed, Laboon should not be his problem anymore, but Crocus tells him that he is not going to let the whale die as he has forged a certain relationship with it. Suddenly, Luffy breaks the mast off going merry and strikes the whale with it. Laboon retaliates and begins fighting with Luffy. Luffy stops the whale and declares that it is a draw between them. Luffy labels Laboon as his rival and promises to have a rematch with him after they had completed their journey. He then asks Laboon to wait for him and not to heal himself as they will be fighting soon. Luffy then paints a Jolly Roger on Laboon's face. Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine escape from the Straw Hat Pirates' ship, but they drop their log pose, which Luffy picks up. They decide to return back to their boss as the time limit to their mission was over. Suddenly, Mr. 13 and Miss Friday, the Unluckies, fly over them and drop a bomb on them. Nami discovers that the usual compass and common sense does not work on Grand Line because of the magnetic fields of various minerals found on Grand Line. Crocus says that they need to have a log pose in order to advance on their adventure. Luffy reveals that he found a log pose on the ship. Crocus then tells them that log pose readapts to the magnetic field of the various islands and will point them in the right direction, which when followed eventually leads to Laugh Tale. Usopp questions if the One Piece is there, to which Crocus replies that only one man and his crew has ever reached there, the pirate King Gold D. Roger mentions that One Piece is a myth and no one really knows if it exists or not. Luffy reveals that they will know for sure when they reach there, so it does not really matter. While they are conversing, Luffy eats all the food and Sanji kicks him for not saving any for others. The log pose suddenly breaks and Nami kicks both. Crocus says that he would give his log pose for saving Laboon. Later, Laboon brings out Sanji, Luffy, Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday out of the sea. Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday requests to go on a journey with the Straw Hat crew to Whisky Peak, their homeland. Crocus tells the crew to leave them be for trying to hurt Laboon, but Luffy agrees to take them to their hometown. The crew then continue on their journey to Whisky Peak, and the episode ends with Crocus saying goodbye to the Straw Hat crew and remembering Gold D. Roger. The Straw Hat pirates travel along with Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine and the Going Merry to get them to Whisky Peak. Nami is surprised by the weather condition on the Grand Line because it changes randomly and drastically. She tells the crew that they are heading in the wrong direction and the crew follow her orders so they can get to Whisky Peak. The Straw Hat pirates arrive at their destination, while Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine get off the ship and start swimming immediately after they see Whisky Peak. Nami says that it is impossible to get off the island unless the log pose settles down. The people of the island welcome the Straw Hat pirates, for which Straw Hat pirates are surprised to witness a town of pirate lovers. The Straw Hat pirates enjoy themselves with the people in the town. Nami is encouraged to participate in a drinking contest for a reward from Igaram. Zoro also joins Nami in a drinking contest. Sanji gets in the company of beautiful women and Usopp lies to people about his adventures, for which people get impressed. Luffy eats to his satisfaction. Nami wins the contest by defeating the last contestant. After the party is over, Igaram reveals that the Straw Hats must be captured alive so they can get the reward without the 30% reduction that they will get if they kill the Straw Hats. Zoro appears on top of a building in front of the bounty hunters and reveals that he knew that they were pretending to be pirate lovers. Igaram and the others are surprised and say that Zoro must be killed. Zoro suddenly disappears instantly and everybody gets surprised. The billions of the Baroque works confused on why Zoro disappeared. They started to look for him when suddenly Zoro was right in the middle of the crowd looking up at the roof he was from. The people around him started shooting, but they ended up shooting each other as Zoro once again disappeared. Mr. 8 commanded them to kill him because he is just one swordsman. Suddenly, Zoro was back to back with Mr. 8 and Zoro slides his sword through Mr. 8's hair. Zoro asked Mr. 8 if adding only one grave is enough. The billions found Zoro on Mr. 8's back, and as they were to shoot him, Mr. 8 shot them with his trumpet, fearing he would be shot too. It is revealed where Zoro is disappearing to as he is seen hiding on a wall. Mr. 9 was convinced that they have to deal with him themselves. Meanwhile, in the bar, Nami is awake and was really not drunk. She discovered that the welcoming town is a nest of bounty hunters. Outside, as Zoro attempts to test Yubashiri and Sandai Kitetsu, his two new swords, a billion on the roof of the building Zoro was hiding found him and shot him. Zoro dodged the shot and went inside the house, but many billions was outside and started shooting him. He flipped a table and went behind it like a shield. He started using Yubashiri and cut the people on the door. He appreciated its lightness. He went up a ladder to a roof of another building and found a billion with a bazooka who shot him immediately the instant he went up, but Zoro dodged it quickly. Miss Monday, on another roof behind Zoro, threw a barrel of wine at him and Zoro turned around and cut it in 4 pieces. He said that the wine was wasted as the 4 cut parts of the barrel hit the billions behind him. Another billion attempted to hammer him behind, but his other sword, Sandai Kitetsu, rashly responded without Zoro commanding it. Zoro is now convinced on why it is cursed. A child tried to attack him and lost, but his mother went to him praying to God for divine protection when suddenly they put up a cross and smoke went out of its center. The nun and the child had easily lost as Zoro was behind them already, but he used the back of his sword. The billions went inside the bar and stepped on Usopp and Luffy. Usopp woke up but slept again, and asleep Sanji held his arm when they were spread as he mistook it as a lady's arm. Nami is searching for treasure, but she only found little. Zoro is at the very top of a building and the billions thought they cornered him, but as a billion climbed up a ladder, he flipped the ladder and jumped to another roof and did hawk wave to the billions there. Billions started jumping to him, but he walked away and warned the billions that he cut a hole on the roof and the billions did fell down. Zoro nearly got hit by a ladder because of Miss Monday. Miss Monday threw the ladder and wore her brass knuckles. She put Zoro down the ground and did Kariki American's superhuman strength fist, punching Zoro on the head. The roof cracked and the agents told it was the end. As they were about to walk away, Miss Monday screamed and Zoro is seen holding her head with only one hand effortlessly. Mr. 8 said that the Marines made a mistake on the wanted posters and they thought that Zoro was the captain worth belly 30 million. Mr. 9 tells Zoro that the lower the number of codename, the stronger the member. With the 3 of them given a single-digit codename, he told him that the billions he took out was not close to their strength. Mr. 8 tried to shoot him with shotgun trumpet and Mr. 9 went up while Miss Wednesday called for Karoo. Karoo let out his hand thinking that Miss Wednesday wants to handshake, but Miss Wednesday told her to come here. Miss Wednesday told him to run, but he sat instead. Mr. 9 is on the roof higher than Zoro's position and did Nikitsu 9 Kanju bat hot-blooded 9 guts bat flipping over while going down and brought out 2 black baseball bats. But with one sword, Zoro can easily hay the advantage. Zoro taunted Mr. 9 and he attempted to jump back to prepare but instead fell down because it was the edge of the roof already. Zoro asked if there is anyone better, and Miss Wednesday, behind Zoro, answered that would be her while calling Zoro Mr. Bushido a warrior code of honor. She did Mawaku no Kusui dance, alluring perfume dance. Zoro knelt down because the perfume was very stinky and Miss Wednesday brought out her Kujaki slasher peacock slasher. Miss Wednesday commanded Karu to run, but he went straight past Zoro and fell to the ground. Mr. 8 tried to shoot him, but he dodged at the same time, went through a hole and went out the building. Mr. 9 woke up and did Katabase Shikomi bat home run training bat, and one of his bats extended and tied up Zoro's arm. Miss Wednesday told Zoro not to move or Luffy will be killed, as Luffy is held still sleeping and Miss Wednesday is holding a knife. Cannons started to pluck out of Mr. 8's hair and shot Zoro. Zoro dragged Mr. 9 and got shot instead and dragged him to Miss Wednesday and Karu. He jumped at Luffy's very fat stomach and went up to the roof where Mr. 8 stands, slashing through him. Luffy woke up wondering why he is outside but went asleep again. As the Unluckies was going to attack some escaping Billions, Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine stopped them and instead attacked the Billions, bombing them. Mr. 8 and the others were found by Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine and insulted on how pathetic they were. Mr. 9 thanked them, thinking they were here to back them up, but their real mission was to eliminate the agents who are important members of a certain kingdom, because they know the boss' secret. Mr. 9 told them that he was not really a king and his crown was just his style, but they were referring to Miss Wednesday, who is the currently missing princess of Arabasta Kingdom. Mr. 8, now revealed to be the captain of Royal Guard of Arabasta named Igaram, shot them with his cannons. Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine was unharmed and told Igaram and Princess Nefertari Vivi Miss Wednesday that they are under arrest. Igaram, head of security of Alabasta, continued to launch his assault on Mr. 5 and Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine, who have discovered both his identity and that of Miss Wednesday Nefertari Vivi, Royal Princess of Alabasta. Zoro observed the attack from the rooftop, musing about Luffy being trapped in the crossfire and having to go rescue him. As Igaram continued his attack, he yells for Vivi to escape, but she can only watch in terror. Amidst the smoke and gunfire, Mr. 5 launched a projectile at Igaram, who is promptly consumed in a powerful explosion as both Vivi and Mr. 9 watch in shock. The smoke began to clear, and Igaram, severely injured, fell. Vivi called out to him in terror, but was interrupted by Miss Valentine, who attacked Vivi after telling her it is useless. Vivi escaped with nothing but a broken hairband and attempted to launch a counterattack with her peacock slashers on Miss Valentine, who promptly floated out of range while laughing and returned to Mr. 5's side. As Vivi seethed, Mr. 9 expressed his amazement at his partner's royal status. Vivi promptly yelled at him for doing so in the midst of a dangerous situation. Zoro, meanwhile, took the chance to drag off a still sleeping, still bloated Luffy. Igaram, still somehow conscious, begged Vivi to abandon him and escape, for the sake of their home Alabasta. Mr. 5 proceeded to pick his nose while calmly stating that it is impossible for Vivi to escape. Enraged, Vivi drew her other peacock slasher and challenged the Baroque Works agent. Before she can attack, however, Mr. 9 stands between her and the pair of assassins. While admitting confusion at the situation, Mr. 9 recounts how long he and Vivi have worked together and told her to run as he buys her some time. As Vivi thanked him, Mr. 9 says his goodbyes and proceeds to charge at Mr. 5 and Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine with his acrobatics. Mr. 5 stated that all that is required of agents is to do their jobs effectively while he pulled out a booger from his nose, chastising Mr. 9 for forming a friendship with his partner. When Mr. 9 attempted to attack, Mr. 5 aims the booger and launched it at Mr. 9, which proceeded to explode and send Mr. 9 flying clear into the river. Vivi watched this in horror, while Zoro observed in bewilderment. While Zoro was distracted, Igaram grabs Zoro's leg, which surprised the pirate swordsman. Igaram stated that he has a most unfair request of Zoro, but required someone of his strength. Igaram continued, saying that both of the agents have devil fruit powers, and that he, Igaram, was hopelessly outmatched against them. As such, Igaram begged Zoro to protect Vivi in his place. All the while, Zoro was struggling to get Igaram to let go of his leg. Miss Valentine laughed at the situation while Mr. 5 picked his nose, and Vivi hopped on Karu's back, commanding him to run. Miss Valentine commented on this, while Mr. 5 states that Vivi will not get far before chasing after her. Miss Valentine followed right behind him. Despite his injuries, Igaram continued to beg Zoro to protect Vivi, promising riches in return for doing so. Zoro angrily refused, mentioning how Igaram and his group had just been attempting to kill Zoro. However, Nami interjected, having overheard the conversation from a rooftop and the mention of a reward. Nami stated that she will take the job, but only in return for belly 1 billion. Igaram was shocked at Nami's price while Zoro and Nami converse. Zoro expressed surprise that Nami was awake, while she retorts that it had all been an act, not trusting a town that welcomes pirates. She then turned her attention to Igaram and said that if he wanted Vivi to escape alive, he had better promise the reward of Billy 1 billion. Igaram stated that his status prevented him from offering such a reward, but Nami retorts by emphasizing the danger to Vivi's life. Desperate, Igaram stated that while he cannot make any promises, the crew could negotiate a reward with Vivi herself. Nami mentions that this would require keeping up their part of the deal, but Igaram pleaded desperately. Nami relented and proceeded to order Zoro to save Vivi, much to the swordsman's anger, saying that he is not going to get involved in Nami's schemes. Nami attempted to explain business to Zoro, but he refuses to fall for her explanation. Nami makes light of the situation, while Zoro vented his frustration at her attempting to order him around just as she took advantage of Sanji. During their conversation, Luffy finally wakes from his slumber. Nami insults Zoro and says that he is just afraid of losing, while Zoro is quickly losing what remains of his patience. A bloated Luffy, still half asleep, walks by the two obliviously in order to find the facilities. Nami then brings up the loan she gave Zoro, but he counters by mentioning that he did not even spend any of it. Nonetheless, Nami counters by saying that he promised to pay her back in 300% interest, bringing his due to Bailey 300,000. Zoro is shocked that Nami expects him to pay her back when he did not spend any of the money in the first place, but Nami persists. She then proceeds to question whether or not Zoro can even keep one little promise, apparently hitting a sore spot, leaving Zoro shocked, furious, and silent. While Zoro grumbles about Nami dying a horrible death, he nonetheless relents and leaves to find Vivi. Igaram muses about his own apparent uselessness, but Nami comforts him by telling Igaram how strong Zoro is. Nonetheless, Igaram morbidly goes on about how Alabasta would be doomed if Vivi died, confusing Nami. Vivi and Karoo continue to flee, with the intention of stealing a ship and fleeing back to Alabasta. A still bloated Luffy relieves himself in a river before intending to go back to sleep, but comes across the carnage that Zoro left behind. Vivi and Karoo continue running away, but are promptly intercepted by Mr. Five and Miss Valentine. Vivi and Karoo run a different route and are met by Miss Monday, who explains that they can reach the ships by taking the path behind her, explaining that she will hold off Mr. Five and Miss Valentine while Vivi makes her escape. Vivi hesitates, but Miss Monday explains that the loss to Zoro means punishment already awaits, so she might as well go down while protecting her friend. She then yells at Vivi to stop waiting around and flee, saying that otherwise Igaram and Mr. Nine's sacrifices would be in vain. Vivi thanks Miss Monday before she and Karoo run away again, leaving Miss Monday to face Mr. Five. While Mr. Five muses about both her and Mr. Nine's defection, Miss Monday remains determined to prevent him from passing. Miss Valentine mocks Miss Monday's resolve, while Mr. Five rushes Miss Monday, calling her a disgrace. Miss Monday attempts to attack, but Mr. Five dodges and clotheslines her, causing a powerful explosion. Hearing the explosion, Vivi temporarily halts her escape to look back as her friend is defeated, seeing an inferno. She can only stare in utter horror as her friend got beaten. Vivi is shocked at the brutality, while Mr. Five explains his powers are from the Bomu Bomu no Mai and that he has yet to fail a mission. Miss Valentine then explains her own powers, originating from the Kiro Kiro no Mai. Miss Valentine then uses her powers to turn herself into a living missile and slam down on Miss Monday with the weight of 10,000 kilograms. Upon standing up, the pair condescendingly state that it is futile for Vivi to escape, and that she does not stand a chance. Vivi, however, remains determined to return to Alabasta and save her kingdom. Mr. Five prepares to attack, but Zoro intercepts, saving a shocked Vivi. Vivi, believing Zoro to still be an enemy, prepares to attack him, but Zoro cuts Vivi's weapon and holds the edge of his blade at her throat, followed by explaining that he is here to help and she needs to calm down. Meanwhile, Nami and Igaram continue talking, with Nami questioning just what Baroque Works is. Igaram hesitates, but then explains that the Baroque Works is a crime syndicate, specializing in sabotage, assassination, and bounty hunting, and so secretive that none of the agents know the boss name or face, but will nonetheless act on his orders. Nami questions this logic, but Igaram goes on to say that Baroque Works' primary goal is to create a utopia, and that those who do their part get a higher standing in said nation. He then continues, explaining the codename and rank system within Baroque Works. Miss Valentine guesses that Zoro is the one who defeated all of the lowly employees in Whisky Peak, while Mr. Five questions as to why Zoro would want to get involved in protecting Vivi. Zoro simply states that he has his own reasons, while Mr. Five says that they will have to eliminate Zoro for his interference. Zoro and Mr. Five prepare to fight, but are interrupted by the shout of an enraged Luffy. While Vivi is confused, Zoro states that while glad to have Luffy's assistance, he can handle the attackers. However, Luffy proceeds to yell threats at Zoro, much to the swordsman's shock and confusion. While Zoro questions what Luffy could be asking, Luffy angrily explains how he came across the men Zoro fought and was tricked into believing Zoro attacked unprovoked. Zoro attempts to explain, but Luffy ignores him and yells at Zoro to fight him. Vivi comments on Luffy's lack of intelligence to Karu's agreement, while Mr. Five and Miss Valentine discuss letting the two kill each other off. Zoro continues his attempts at explanation, but Luffy will not have and attacks. Zoro dodges Luffy's assault while attempting to calm down his captain. Miss Valentine and Mr. Five muse from the sidelines before deciding to return to their mission eliminating Princess Vivi. However, Zoro kicks the bloated rubber man into the pair, sending the three of them flying. Having had enough interference, Mr. Five explains his intentions to kill both Luffy and Zoro, and attacks Luffy while Zoro and Vivi watch from a distance. In the midst of the explosions, Miss Valentine flies up and prepares to attack Zoro and Vivi. Vivi tells Zoro to flee, but Zoro interrupts her. Luffy then steps out of the smoke, having digested the food that he ate and dragging a beaten and bloodied Mr. Five. Vivi is utterly shocked at Luffy's victory over such a powerful foe. Luffy turns his attention back to Zoro, who tries to explain the situation. Miss Valentine floats above the swordsman and tries to explain her powers, but becomes quite angry when she finds she is being ignored. Luffy does not believe Zoro's explanation based on the concept that enemies would not give them such tasty food Zoro is done attempting to explain, and casually dodges Miss Valentine's attack attempt and prepares to fight Luffy. While Vivi is confused, the crewmates charge each other, launching a Gomu Gomu Domu no Bazooka and Onigiri respectively, the attacks canceling each other out as the two grapple. Zoro and Luffy decide to test steel against rubber, and Zoro launches a Tatsumaki, flinging Luffy into the air. To Zoro's surprise, Luffy is able to launch a Gomu Gomu no pistol, landing a direct hit as they both slam into walls. Vivi ponders the situation as she and Karu warily tread the battlefield, before both Luffy and Zoro break out of the rubble and resume their attacks. Mr. Five and Miss Valentine observe the ferocious battle, Mr. Five commenting that the pair are making fools of them on their own turf, and that Baroque Works will be shamed if they fail their mission. The two charge headlong into the battle, but are promptly disposed of by the captain and Zoro for interrupting their battle. Having defeated Mr. Five and Miss Valentine, Luffy and Zoro turn back to each other, prepared to resume their own battle. Vivi and Karu watch helplessly, still shocked that they beat a Baroque Works officer agent pair so easily. But before they can strike their first blows at each other, Nami knocks them both silly. While Luffy finally understands why Zoro was fighting Whisky Peak's denizens, Nami presses Vivi on a $1 billion contract to return her to the Arabasta kingdom. Vivi says it is unlikely she will be able to pay due to the brewing civil strife in her home kingdom. She had learned a few years before that Baroque Works was manipulating the populace of Arabasta for the purpose of usurping her father, the king. She asked Igaram, one of her closest allies, to help her infiltrate the organization and find out who was pulling the strings. She is reluctant to reveal who the leader is since doing so would expose her and put her on his hit list. However, in her growing nervousness, she inadvertently reveals who the leader is. Mr. Zero is Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. As she utters his name, the Unluckies, Mr. 13 and Miss Friday, stand in silence, perched above them atop a brick wall. After Mr. 13 makes composite sketches of Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, the Unluckies fly off. Nami is enraged by this turn of events, but shakes off out of anger for getting them into this. Vivi repeatedly apologizes sincerely for accidentally telling them, saying it just slipped out, but Nami is still not satisfied. While Zoro and Luffy are excited to potentially be on a warlord's hit list, Nami laments being in such mortal danger the moment they enter the Grand Line. While they try to figure out what to do, Igaram returns. He has arrived dressed vaguely like Vivi and carrying 3 dummies, which are supposed to be the present Straw Hats. He will use Vivi's eternal pose to get straight to Arabasta, and will act as a decoy. He recommends that Vivi Island hop to Arabasta with the Straw Hats using their log pose, making it harder for Baroque Works to trace them. Igaram says that before Crocodile became a world government-sanctioned privateer, he had a bounty of belly 80 million, so he is highly dangerous. Luffy eagerly accepts the challenge. Shortly after Igaram sets sail, his ship explodes in a fireball even bigger than Whisky Peak itself, incinerating the decoys and sending the eternal pose into the water. Angered, Luffy runs to the Going Merry to set sail. Nami quickly comforts Vivi, who presumes Igaram to be dead. She promises that her crew can easily handle Baroque Works, and they will get her home. Luffy finds Sanji and Usopp, grabs them and drags them to the ship. Vivi wonders where Karu went, but he turns up on the ship already. While they prepare to sail, a woman comments on how foolish the decoy was. Vivi directs them down a river to get to sea, saying that Baroque Works has a total of over 2,000 agents with several bases along the way to Arabasta. As dawn breaks, the Going Merry gets out to open water in a light fog. An unknown voice joins the ship, and they see someone stowing away the woman from the previous night. She compliments the Going Merry. Vivi instantly recognizes the woman as the vice president of Baroque Works and female partner of Mr. Zero himself, Miss All Sunday. She says she ran into Mr. 8 Igaram just a bit ago, implying she was the one that blew up his ship. Luffy just wants to know why she is on their ship and who is she. Luffy then asks if she is bad. Miss All Sunday says she allowed Vivi to follow her and find out who Mr. Zero was, intrigued by a young girl trying to save her kingdom, but calling it ridiculous. Zoro and Nami draw their weapons, while Usopp and Sanji aim weapons at her, Usopp with his slingshot and Sanji with a pistol. Usopp notes it is out of character for Sanji to threaten a woman, but Sanji explains he sees her as a threat to Vivi. Miss All Sunday nonchalantly tells them not to point dangerous things at her, and suddenly they get disarmed. They realize she is a devil fruit user of some sort. Sanji also, after seeing how beautiful Miss All Sunday looks, predictably falls for her. Miss All Sunday says she has no orders, so she has no reason to deal with them right now. She also reveals she has heard of Luffy as she sneaks his straw hat off with her power. She then reveals that Nami's log pose is pointing to Little Garden, home to one of the bases of Baroque Works. She tosses Luffy back his hat and gives Vivi an eternal pose that points to Nanamoni Island, an uninhabited island near Arabasta. It will bypass all of their bases and supposedly allow Vivi to get safely home. Although Vivi thinks about it, Luffy crushes the eternal pose without a second thought. He tells Miss All Sunday he will not allow an outsider to determine his cruise course. Luffy also says he hates her because she exploded Igaram's ship. She responds by saying she likes Luffy's spirit, and that they should meet again someday if they make it through Baroque Works. She then departs, riding a large sea turtle. Vivi collapses, frustrated by Miss All Sunday's ambiguous nature. The others clue Usopp and Sanji in on what is going on as they continue their journey. Elsewhere, Miss All Sunday wonders how the Straw Hats will fare when they get to Little Garden. A quick view of an island foreshadows with a jungle, a tiger and an enormous footprint relative to the tiger and the jungle. Luffy asks if it will to snow again and Zoro responds there is no way it would. Luffy says to Zoro that it does snow, but he did not notice it last time because he was asleep. Luffy asks Vivi if she think it will snow and she answers that the first sea that they were at was special, since the magnetic forces mess everything up. She also warns the crew never to underestimate the Grand Line Sea as an ironclad rule. Vivi gets mad about how everyone is acting, not taking anything seriously enough. Sanji leaves out the kitchen, having prepared 9 drinks for the crew. Nami assures her that when things get rough, they know how to handle it. Vivi realizes she is right when a colossal dolphin attacks them, making everyone rush to their stations to outrun the gigantic threat. After that, the crew see the mysterious Little Garden Island shrouded in fog as everyone gets excited to encounter their second island in their trip on the Grand Line. The scene goes to Mr. 3 and Miss Goldenweek, who are seen on Kuka Island. While Mr. 3 is preparing himself an Earl Grey tea, they discuss the downfall of Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. Mr. 3 talks to Miss Goldenweek on how Mr. 5 is just an idiot with devil fruit powers, who was overconfident in his position. He then states that they will teach whoever defeated Mr. 5 the terror of making a criminal organization their enemy. Returning to the crew, they remember what Miss All Sunday said about the island, stating that they will all be dead before they reach Arabasta. The crew gets restless as they see more of the island, but keeps on going due to lack of food and materials. As they enter the island, Sanji gets attacked by a gigantic bird signaling that this island is not normal at all. To reassure that notion, a huge tiger prowls beside the boat and then keels over with blood. Luffy then demands to visit the island, and Vivi comes with him because she does not want to dwell in her problems. So Luffy, Vivi, and Karoo depart after Sanji has made a pirate lunch for the 3 of them. Zoro decides to take a walk, and Sanji asks him to get some edible-looking animals to bring back. Zoro makes a smart remark and challenges Sanji to see if he can get a bigger animal than him. Sanji, furious with this, embarks onto the island to get more kilos than Zoro, and Zoro responds by saying they will compete for tons. Creeped out by the noises, Nami realizes that she remembers something about Little Island in a book and starts searching for it. Luffy and Vivi find a shellfish that looks like a squid, just as the sound of giant footsteps are coming from behind. As the time being, Sanji nearly gets eaten by a T-Rex. Zoro encounters a Triceratops and wonders if it is edible. Luffy and Vivi also find a dinosaur, but this one is a Brachiosaurus. Vivi then realizes what is happening on the island, saying due to the Grand Line being so dangerous nothing has been able to migrate from the island, preserving the unique ecosystem Little Garden has. Nami tells Usopp about what inhabits the island, just as a giant mysterious figure is seen inside the jungle. As Nami and Usopp see someone gigantic approximating the Going Merry through breaking trees across the forest, they start crying. A giant comes out and asks Nami and Usopp for alcohol. Nami respond that the only alcohol they have is for cooking and disinfection. The giant screams in pain because he just got bitten by a T-Rex from the back. He chops the T-Rex head and introduces himself as Brogy, claiming to be the strongest warrior of Elbaf. He also calls Nami and Usopp as guests, but, frightened, the two play dead. Elsewhere, Luffy and Vivi are exploring. Luffy comments the view on top of the Brachiosaurus and says he wants to have lunch in there. Luffy then starts to play along the necks of the Brachiosaurus and gets eaten by one of them. A giant slashes the neck of the dinosaur and catches Luffy with his hand and tells him he has been watching him. The giant introduces himself as Dory, Elbaf's strongest warrior. Luffy introduces himself, Vivi, and Karoo before Dory invites them to his home. Brogy takes Usopp and Nami to his place, where he is roasting dinosaur meat to treat them as his guests. They, however, fearing to be eaten themselves, try to escape through the jungle. Either way, after being chased by larger and larger predators, they end up back at Brogy's feet. Back to Dory, he tells Luffy, Karoo, and Vivi that he is engaged in a duel that has lasted 100 years. Whenever the island's central volcano erupts, the two face each other in combat. Meanwhile, in the jungle, Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine join forces with Mr. 3 and Miss Goldenweek, who plot to earn the giants huge bounties. Usopp, who is immensely impressed with the giants' fight, decides to strive to be like them and starts calling Brogy Master. After their fight, which, like thousands before it, ends in a draw, Dory receives 2 barrels of alcohol from Brogy, which he obtained from Nami and Usopp. When Dory later drinks it and it badly injures him from within, he accuses the Straw Hats. Left with no choice, Luffy fights the weakened giant and knocks him out. Unbeknownst to the crew and giants, the contents of one of the barrels has been rigged to explode. However, by the time of the next eruption of the center volcano, Dory gets back up and heads into battle, knowing his chances to be low. Ignoring the fact that he's badly injured, Dory puts a gigantic rock on top of Luffy to prevent him to interfere in his fight with Brogy. Then, the two giants meet and start to fight once again. Zoro finds Nami in the middle of the forest, but he suspects that it's not all right. Nami finds Luffy, but she's immediately attacked. Usopp, left alone in the forest, screams in panic and runs until he reaches Vivi and Luffy. Vivi suspects that Baroque Works is responsible for the disapparitions and for the sneak attack with the barrel. Mr. 3, in fact, has planned to make Brogy defeat Dory, and some minutes later it really happens. Brogy, not knowing the help received, bursts in tears, but Mr. 3 immediately blocks his legs with a strange substance. Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine reach Dory's base, bringing Karoo with them. They found him and hit him repeatedly. The 2 officer agents quickly defeat Usopp and Vivi. After explosively beating down on the still-trapped Luffy, Mr. 5 and his partner take Vivi to the giant's duel site, where Mr. 3 is busy further restraining Brogy with his wax. After that, Mr. 3 creates a large cake-shaped pedestal upon which Vivi, Nami, and Zoro are placed. On top of the pedestal, he creates a rotating platform upon which he places several large candles which spray wax over his prisoners, slowly turning them into wax figures. Then he explains to Brogy how he manipulated their duel, causing the giant to burst out in anger and break his restraints. However, before he can completely free himself, Mr. 5 knocks the giant out with several explosions and Mr. 3 renews the restraints. Meanwhile, Karoo digs Luffy out from under the rock. The bird, Luffy, and Usopp arrive at the scene, just as Zoro attempts to free himself by cutting off his legs. Mr. 3 decides to fight Luffy, because he suspects that Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine are not strong enough, so he orders them to defeat Usopp and Karoo. Mr. 3 blocks Luffy's feet with his wax, but the young pirate uses it to destroy a portion of the construction that is killing Zoro, Nami, and Vivi. While doing this, the wax around his feet breaks, but the transformation of his friends and statues accelerates. Luffy tries again to destroy the giant candle service set, but Mr. 3 defends his creation with some candle walls. Even Usopp tries to destroy the giant candle service set with an exploding star, but it is eaten by Mr. 5 without any problems. Luffy defeats Mr. 3, and so he can free his friends, but he decides not to do it. Miss Goldenweek, in fact, has used her ability, Color's Trap, to hypnotize him. Luffy is standing on a paint which orders people to betray friends. Vivi uses a trick to make him go outside the symbol, but Miss Goldenweek draws another symbol on his back and Luffy starts to laugh. Usopp and Karoo, running away from their pursuers, hit Luffy and partially delete the symbol. Luffy is now free from the hypnosis, but is immediately victim of another one that blocks him from saving his friends. Usopp runs away from Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine and comes back to Luffy, but it seems that it is too late for Zoro, Nami, and Vivi. Once back at the pedestal, Usopp finds Luffy drinking tea with Miss Goldenweek, while their friends are already completely covered in wax and their time is running out. He burns Luffy's shirt, upon which Miss Goldenweek had painted, using a flaming projectile. Luffy, again himself, attempts to destroy the pedestal but is interrupted by the returning Mr. 3, who creates himself a candle champion. Usopp is finally struck down by Mr. 5's explosive shots, but is still able to make Karoo run around the pedestal dragging behind it a rope, which Usopp soaks in flammable oil just as Miss Valentine begins to crush him with the intent doing it fatally. Luffy then grabs Mr. 3 at his burning, 3-shaped hairdo and uses it to inflame the rope, burning the large wax structure and freeing the others. As they emerge from the flames, Miss Valentine's wicked smile turns to horror when she sees Nami and Vivi freed and is defeated, and Zoro makes quick work of Mr. 5. Luffy and Karoo chase after Mr. 3 and his partner and defeat them, respectively. Meanwhile, Sanji stumbles upon a candle house, which is Mr. 3's hideout. Suddenly in the house, Sanji receives a call via Edenden Mushi from Mr. Zero. Once Sanji realizes that he is talking to Mr. Zero, he pretends being Mr. 3 and convinces the warlord that he has eliminated Vivi and her Straw Hat's escort. During the conversation, Crocodile's messengers, the Otter and its partner, the Vulture, called the Unluckies, arrive to deliver an eternal pose leading to Arabasta to Mr. 3. They attack Sanji, but he kills them. To justify the noisy interruption, Sanji tells Mr. Zero that one of the Straw Hats was still alive. Crocodile tells him to return to Arabasta, and after the conversation, he orders Miss All Sunday to order Mr. 2 to intercept and eliminate Mr. 3 en route. While Brogy mourns the apparent death of Dory, creating a rainfall of tears, Dory suddenly wakes up, much to the shock of everyone. Dory concludes that, after 100 years, Brogy's axe had gotten dull and only blacked him out. Using the eternal pose to guide them, the crew sets sail. Dory and Brogy see them off, and, to thank them, they use their worn-out weapons to kill the Island Eater as it attempts to feed on the Going Merry. After killing the Island Eater with Haku, the weapons of the two giants break and they try to remember why they were dueling for about 100 years ago until their signal for battle activates. It is revealed they were captains of a crew of giants who battled anyone who opposed them. After they each killed a Sea King, a little girl asked which one was bigger. This caused the two to head to Little Garden and compare sizes, and they remained on the island and dueled to decide which was bigger ever since. Back to the Going Merry, Usopp starts talking about how he would like to go to Elbaf someday, and Luffy agrees to that, so they dance while singing until they almost fall overboard. Meanwhile, Nami starts to feel tired and asks Vivi to watch the eternal pose leading to the Arabasta kingdom for her. Vivi then remembers how she must not die if she wants to save her kingdom. Sanji gets out of the kitchen telling Vivi to not push herself too hard. As she has him, he then offers Vivi and Nami some appetizers and asks for their beverage of choice. Luffy, Usopp, and Karoo's mouth are watering, and Sanji, in a mad way, tell them that theirs are in the kitchen. Zoro is seen in the back of the Merry doing half-ton weights and saying to himself that he is weak, as he could not save everyone of the Tokudai candle service set. On Sandy Island, an alarm sounds to let Mr. Tubon Kure know that his crew is ready to depart. Back to the Merry, Nami's condition gets worse when she suddenly faints after telling Vivi she was going to lay down. After talking with Vivi, Sanji, Karoo, Usopp, and Luffy, Nami gets out of the room pretending her condition to be okay. Nami asks Zoro why he did not watch the pose and advert her of the change in the course. She predicts that an atypical wind will catch in their way if they keep going straight. Zoro orders the crew to change direction, and the pirates save themselves of a cyclone. While it's snowing, Nami is in bed and Vivi is taking care of her as Sanji and Karoo freak out. Zoro sees a man standing in the sea and lets Luffy and Usopp know. The Bliking emerges from the water, and the Bliking pirates board the Going Merry, surrounding Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and then Sanji when he comes out. Wapol is seen eating a meat stick, but instead of a stick, he uses a sword. He also eats the sword, and the crew is surprised. A member of the Bliking pirates reveals Wapol ate the Baku Baku no Mai so he can eat everything. Luffy gets mad about the fact that Wapol starts eating his ship and starts to fight. The crew backs him up except for Usopp, and the pirates retreat after Luffy sends his captain flying with a Gomu Gomu no rocket. As the Bliking pirates retreat, someone keeps yelling at them to remember them. A flashback of a marine ship several days ago is seen. A subordinate informs Captain Smoker about a signal being intercepted. Smoker calls Tashigi, and they listen to parts of the conversation between Mr. Zero and Sanji. Smoker and Tashigi discuss and plan to go to Arabasta. In the Merry, Luffy tries to cheer Nami up but fails. The crew drops anchor for the night, as they cannot navigate without Nami's instructions during the night. Everybody is asleep in the room where Nami is when she suddenly wakes up and sees almost everyone and smiles. She then lays down again. At the same time, Sanji is on the top of the ship, making guard. In the morning, Usopp starts hammering and Sanji wakes up. Vivi explains that the climate may be cold because an island is nearby. She then proceeds to explain the island climatic types. Sanji spots an island and notifies the crew. When they finally arrive to Drum Island, the people of the town is threatening them. Dalton orders the crew to raise their anchor and leave the island, but a villager shoots to Sanji and misses. Sanji is going to fight back, but Vivi interposes and she gets shot. After Vivi has been shot by a villager on Drum Island, Luffy enrages and prepares to attack the inhabitants. Vivi quickly hugs Luffy and tells him he is not qualified to be a captain because not everything need to be resolved with fighting. Karoo is watching over Nami. Luffy calms down and apologies to the people on the island. Dalton empathizes with the crew and orders them to follow him. Vivi smiles to Luffy because the people understood and Luffy compliments her. Usopp, Sanji carrying Nami, and Luffy are following Dalton and the inhabitants of the island when they encounter a hiking bear and Usopp tells everyone to play dead. Everyone in there simply passes along the hiking bear after bowing. In the Going Merry, Zoro comments how his legs are fully healed now. Later, he is seen without a shirt talking about training while Karoo is amazed. Dalton introduces Bighorn to the visitors and tells to everyone that whoever is not a guard can return to his house. Negikuma Maria asks how things went after she heard there were pirates. Dalton invites the visitors to his house and tells them to use a bed. After that, Nami is seen laying on it while Vivi covers her. Dalton introduces himself as the captain of the security squad of the island. He feels like he has seen Vivi before, but Vivi nervously answers by telling him it's probably just his imagination. She changes topic by asking him to tell them more about the witch, since Nami's temperature is around 42 G. Dalton talks to the visitors about the Drum Rockies and how on the top of the tallest mountain is the Drum Castle, where there is no longer a king, but is where Kureha lives. Luffy decides to wake up Nami because he is going to climb the mountain while carrying her. After hearing him, Nami agrees with the idea. After Sanji decides he is coming too and everything is set, Dalton advised the two to climb the mountain by the other side because there are Lapons in the main course. After Luffy and Sanji have departed, Usopp and Vivi watch them leaving and stay outside. Dalton, after seeing their concern, decides to join them. He then talks about the country and how they were known as an advanced medical nation because the skilled doctors that inhabited in there. It turns out that the country was attacked by 5 pirates months ago. The captain of the crew called himself Blackbeard. Some people thought that the country being destroyed was better for its sake, as it contributed to the destruction of the Drum Kingdom and his king, Wapol. Luffy and Sanji are seen running through the slope of the mountain while they are chatting, but a Lapon keeps attacking them because they keep dodging his attacks. Sanji gets annoyed at this and kicks him, sending him flying. Sanji and Luffy encounter a big herd of Lapons. Dalton keeps talking about the past situation of the kingdom. The Blyking is seen and Chess is on top while he sights Drum Island and notifies the captain of the Blyking pirates. Sanji and Luffy encounter a herd of Lapons. While under attack, Sanji tells Luffy not to attack nor be struck by the animals, as Nami would receive the impact too. Sanji uses Flanchet Shoot on a Lapon. At a town, Kureha treats a sick boy by doing a little operation and giving him antibiotics. She then charges a fee of food, beverages, trash bags, and 50% of the restaurant's assets. After the boy awakens and gives her his thanks, she decides to make a 1% discount on the fee. Zoro is outside the ship, training his body to resist the cold while Karoo is watching covered in a blanket. Zoro invites Karoo to join him, but he refuses by shaking his head with his eyes closed. After he opens them again, he does not see Zoro and thinks he must have drowned in the river. Karoo nervously jumps off the ship to save him, while Zoro comes out of the water, commenting how nice the dive was. Back in the wilderness surrounding the Drum Rockies, Sanji and Luffy are hindered by the persistence of the rabbits. On their way to Cocoa Weed, Dalton talks about the former king, and how he was a subordinate of his reign and how Wapol formed the Ishi-20 while restricting the access to doctors for the country. After seeing Vivi's anger just afterwards, Dalton seems to come to the conclusion that Vivi is indeed a princess that he has seen before. Zoro got lost, and while wandering in the woods, he encounters Kureha and Chopper. He asks if she can give him a ride to the next village, but Kureha kicks him in the face for calling her old and leaves. Zoro then decides to train his muscles in order to get warmer. At the coast of Drum Island, the Blyking pirates arrive. As Kuromaramo holds a citizen captive, they have beaten the watchman. Wapol is then seen riding on Robson. After Chess informs the status of the Drum Castle, Wapol's crew begins to mobilize, but they then changes course as the Going Merry is spotted. Usopp and the others are speaking to some people in Cocoa Weed, and someone says that the doctor went to Gyasta. A badly injured watchman informs of the arrival of Wapol to Dalton. Luffy and Sanji find themselves in the middle of an avalanche caused by the Lapons. Luffy, while carrying Nami and Sanji, are trying to escape from the avalanche. While they are running, Sanji spots a cliff and tells Luffy that they need to get to a high place. Both made it to the cliff, but the avalanche reaches them anyway. In different towns surrounding the Drum Rockies, some people prepare for the upcoming arrival of Wapol as they follow Dalton to Bighorn. Vivi and Usopp are riding a sled trying to get to Gyasta, but they miss the sign. In Bighorn, Wapol is eating buildings while being accompanied by his Blyking pirates. Kuromaramo informs Wapol that the Straw Hats are searching for a doctor because one of their crew is sick, and that Kureha has been living in the Drum Castle while he was absent. Dalton arrives to Bighorn, jumps and slashes Wapol's chest. Wapol is quickly operated on by the Ishi-20 and stands up again. After failing to convince Wapol to leave the country, Dalton transforms into a bison-human hybrid. Two persons in Wapol's crew comment and compliment each other, the Yushi Yushi no Mai model bison. Luffy continues his journey to where the mountain is, but he is intercepted by Wapol and his men. He decides to ignore the king but is attacked by his two subordinates. The Lappan he saved before and its group come to the rescue when they try to attack Luffy. They held back Wapol so Luffy could get away. Once he reaches the mountain, Luffy starts climbing it. Navy rescues Usopp after both were swallowed by the avalanche. They start walking until they encounter Zoro, who is buried in snow. In the mountains, all the Lappans have been defeated by Wapol and his two followers. Zoro, Vivi, and Usopp arrive at Bighorn and they see a commotion. Zoro identifies the soldiers that are preventing the citizens from unearthing Dalton as the pirates that attacked them before. He then attacks one of the soldiers and takes his coat and shoes, noting how warm the coat is. The soldiers try to take down Zoro, but he defeats them all after stealing 3 of their swords. After that, one villager thanks Zoro and everyone starts digging in the snow to search for Dalton. Usopp decides to help them too. After immense struggling, Luffy finally arrives at the top on the mountain, where Chopper helps him. Inside the drum castle, Korea and Chopper tend to the weakened guests. Chopper figures out that Nami's sickness must be due to the bite of a Kestia, being confirmed by Korea. Inside a room, Nami finally awakens and meets Chopper, who is scared of her. Nami finds herself surprised, as the strange creature she met when she woke up is able to talk. It appears to be worried about her health, but acts scared and clumsy. Doctor. Korea calls him Chopper. She informs Nami, whose fever has gone down, that her sickness was caused by a disease-carrying bug bite and that it would have killed her in 2 more days. Because of the severity of her sickness, Korea tells Nami she has to stay for at least 3 more days in order to recover. In the meantime, Chopper looks after Luffy and Sanji in another room. He then remembers their arrival at the top of the mountain. Sanji had several injuries and Luffy was wearing his usual clothes, so he suffered from insufficient heat. As Korea inspected Nami, Luffy grabbed Korea's arm, telling her they were his friends. While Chopper is lost in this memory, Luffy awakens hungry as usual. Chopper, who sees that Luffy wants to eat him, gets scared again. Sanji also starts to wake up and scares Chopper even more. Both chase after him, stopping for a moment when they see Nami. When they continue chasing Chopper, Nami asks Korea about him, who tells her that Chopper is just a reindeer with a blue nose who ate a devil fruit, the Hito Hito no Mai, enabling him to speak and walk around like a human. In the meantime, Chopper transforms into a bigger and more muscular version of himself in order to break up from his pursuers. Korea also mentions that she taught Chopper everything about medicine. At the foot of the mountain, Wapol and his 2 followers, Chess and Kuromaremo, are still on the search for Luffy to get their revenge. In the village, which was buried by the avalanche, everyone except Zoro digs the snow in search for Dalton. When they find him, he appears to be dead as he has no pulse. Luffy and Sanji, who lost track of Chopper, are in the same room with Korea. Luffy asks her to join their crew, as they still need a doctor on board. After another attempt of hunting down Chopper, both of them are being chased away by Korea and discover that the castle is filled with snow. Chopper stays with Nami, who asks him to be the crew's doctor. Later on, Korea tells Nami that convincing him will not be easy. She explains that Chopper had a difficult past because he was born with a blue nose. After he had eaten the devil fruit, he became even more different than the other reindeer. Being hated and feared by both reindeer and humans, he was left all by himself. When Luffy and Sanji want to close the gate in order to prevent more snow from entering the castle, Chopper transforms into his muscular form again to stop them. Sanji realizes that there is a nest of birds which would fall if the gate was closed. They stop without a fight, but call Chopper a monster because of his abilities and appearance. This causes the reindeer to leave while he is crestfallen. Nevertheless, Luffy likes Chopper's strangeness and wants him on his crew. Chopper is in a laboratory when Luffy enters the room, startling Chopper, which causes him to throw the laboratory glassware. Chopper is able to catch every single piece of glassware while the materials are falling. Luffy starts tickling Chopper because he wants to see if Chopper releases the materials. The captain then asks Chopper to become his friend and join his crew, but Chopper refuses and runs away. Sanji enters the room where Nami is resting and brings a meal for Nami with him. When Korea enters, Sanji calls her madam and she kicks him. Meanwhile, Luffy is chasing after Chopper around Korea, but when she hears the term Nakama, she proceeds to tell a story about the only friend Chopper had, Haralook. Years ago, Haralook escaped from Wapol's soldiers during the doctor hunt. He coughed and spat blood into his hand. Inside a house, a man was sick and his wife tried to convince him to beg Wapol for the Ishi-20. Haralook then appeared through an explosion of smoke and tried to treat the citizen, but he refused. Haralook insisted and injected him with a drug obtained by a frog's essence, and the man turned green and started to croak and hop away. The soldiers arrived at the house and Hiruluk escaped through a broken window. On his way, he encountered Korea and they had a chat until the soldiers spotted them. The quack then ran into Chopper, who was badly injured by gunshots. He tried to tend to Chopper's injuries, but the moment he brought out his tranquilizer gun, Chopper hit him. Chopper tried to leave, but Hiruluk grabbed his attention after he got naked, trying to prove to him that he would not do him any harm. Chopper woke up in Hiruluk's place and started to feel hungry. He then grabbed some bread and in the second bite, he started to cry. After 3 days, Chopper talked for the first time. Hiruluk asked why he did not talk before, and Chopper explained he did not want to talk because it was not ordinary for a reindeer to talk, so he might get scared. The quack and Chopper visited the village periodically, always getting kicked out. The reindeer and the doctor got into a fight, and after finishing, Chopper said it was his first time fighting with someone. Hiruluk then gifted Chopper a hat and began to tell a story about a sick man, a miracle, and cherry blossoms. One day, Hiruluk kicked Chopper out of his place, shooting at him after he was outside. The doctor asked Korea how many days of life he had left, and she told him that he had only 10 days left. Hiruluk left Korea's place and claimed that he would show Chopper that anything was possible. Luffy is locked down in a room by Chopper, but he steals the key and is able to get out. After Luffy starts chasing Chopper again, he suddenly stops because he smells Wapol is nearby. Korea continues telling the story of Chopper's past. Chopper is running through the woods when he suddenly crashes into a tree. He then remembers about when he heard Wapol's soldiers talking about a mushroom that could cure all diseases, requested by the Issue 20. He proceeds to enter Hiruluk's place in search for the book where the mushroom is depicted. After finding the book, he goes on a journey to find the Amudake. In his voyage, he encounters a herd of reindeer. One of the reindeer bumps him with his head. After standing up again, Chopper fights back. Later, he finally finds the fungus, but the herd has followed him. Hiruluk is experimenting in his laboratory when the door opens. He is amazed as Chopper enters extremely beaten up. With an eye closed and a broken leg, he delivers the saprophyte to his friend. The quack kneels down to him and hugs him as he cries, telling him he will become a great doctor because of his kind heart. After the quack doctor eats the mushroom soup, he goes to the town and orders Chopper to rest. In the town, soldiers are restricting access to Drum Castle because Wapol ordered to say that all the doctors at the castle were sick. Korea arrives at Hiruluk's cave where Chopper shows the mushroom he fed. A horrified Korea beats Chopper and tells him that the mushroom was poison. The reindeer tries to deny her claims, but Korea assures him of her claims and tells him that there is no medicine that can work for all diseases, and that is why doctors exist, and being kind is not enough to save people. Korea further explains that Chopper needs medical skills and the training to use them. Realizing what he did, Chopper starts crying hysterically as a saddened Korea calls him a poor fool. Hiruluk arrives in town and throws 2 bombs at the guards. He then orders a guard to take him to the top of the mountain where the castle is. When he reaches the castle, Wapol reveals that he lied about the Issue 20 being sick because it was just a trap for him, so he could be executed. Meanwhile, Chopper is running towards the mountain in order to save Hiruluk, but he arrives after the doctor made himself explode. Dalton stops an enraged Chopper, because if he fights, he would only end up dead. Dalton affirms he would carry on with Hiruluk's legacy. Because he rebels in front of Wapol, Dalton is locked up. Back in the present, Luffy spots Wapol and the others at the top of the mountain. Chopper also lets Korea know of their arrival. Chess lets Wapol know of the flag on top of Drum Castle. Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no pistol on Wapol, sending him flying, but he is rescued by his subordinates just when he is about to fall down the mountain. As Luffy goes into the castle to find warm clothes, Sanji protects Korea from an afro thrown by Kuromarimo. Kuromarimo keeps throwing afros at Sanji. Even though they pose no apparent danger, they stick to their foes by static, so when Chess fires an incendiary arrow, the afros start a fire. Luffy borrows Nami's jacket, and with the help with Sanji, they throw an attack at Wapol. The former king, displeased, turns himself into Baku Baku Factory and eats Chess and Kuromarimo. He then releases Chess Marimo and shoots the Jolly Roger of Hiruluk. Luffy is able to catch the flag and raises it again with the help of one of the sleeves of Nami's coat. Wapol shoots him again, but he does not flinch, leaving the flag waving. Luffy plants Hiruluk's flag on top of a tower and propels himself towards Wapol and Chess Marimo. He then asks Chopper if he would be able to handle Chess Marimo by himself, and he responds by saying it will be a piece of cake. Chopper takes a rumble ball out and consumes it. He starts fighting with Chess Marimo, who got out 2 bows with an incendiary arrow on each one. He shoots the arrows, but Chopper is able to dodge them both. Chess Marimo now gets out 4 wooden hammers, and Chopper explains the drug and how he can use 7 forms. He is able to break 2 hammers with his hooves, and he claims that they are strong enough to break through rock. Chess Marimo now gets out 4 axes and starts attacking the reindeer, which he dodges. Chopper spots the weak point of Chess Marimo with his enhanced brain point and punches him there after dodging an attack. Luffy has been watching Chopper's fight in amazement, but everyone loses track of Wapol, who sneaks off and enters Drum Castle. Meanwhile, the Ishi 20 are able to revive Dalton after regaining the trust of the citizens. Dalton tries to leave the town, but he is very weakened. Usopp volunteers to carry him, but he can barely stand the weight. Zoro helps him out and they head towards the mountain. As Luffy races back into Drum Castle to fight Wapol, Chopper tells Kureha that Luffy said he was his friend. Inside the castle, Nami gets a coat and prepares to escape while Kureha is occupied, wanting to get back on the sea and get Vivi back to Arabasta. She walks out of the room only to catch sight of Wapol, who immediately suspects she is one of the Straw Hats. He chases her along the ledge but gets stuck in a stairway. He uses Baku Baku Factory Slim Up Wapol to eat himself and become slim. However, the moment he tackles Nami to consume her, he gets a kick to the face from Luffy. Nami conks Luffy over the head for damaging her jacket as it cost her Billy 28,800 after bargaining. She tells him that now he has to pay her Billy 100,000 for it. Wapol reaches the doorway to the castle armory, which only he has a key for. His plan is to eat all the weapons with Baku Baku Factory to become a human weapon, but when he reaches for his key, he finds it is gone and runs up the column stairway with Luffy chasing him. Nami is disappointed as she swiped that key hoping it opened a treasury. Sanji, still debilitated by his re-injured back, crawls back to Nami, realizing she is not injured. Wapol is determined to retake his kingdom and get his revenge. He gets to the top dome of the castle and uncovers his ultimate weapon, the Royal Drum Crown's 7-shot Bliking Cannon. Luffy arrives and Wapol tries to fire the cannon at him. It makes some noises, but shoots nothing. Wapol tries the trigger lever several times, but it appears the cannon is empty. All that comes out are snowbirds that were nesting inside. As Chopper waits outside for the battle's final outcome, villagers have assembled at the base of the drum ropeway, which is also Dr. Kureha's house. A gondola is transporting some soldiers along with Zoro, Usopp, Vivi, and Dalton. Usopp wonders if Dalton should have come at all since he is still recovering from his injuries and hypothermia, but he is determined to see Wapol defeated and his kingdom destroyed. Back at the castle, Luffy grabs Wapol, saying the battle is over and what he is does not matter, since he is a pirate. Wapol says assaulting him is a crime against the world government, which Drum Kingdom is a part of. He opens his mouth wide to eat Luffy, but Luffy's rubber fingers stretch around it. Wapol turns his tongue into barrow cannon to shoot Luffy. On the drum ropeway, Dalton recalls how Wapol captured most of Drum's doctors, and his ministers claimed that government did not need to be good to its people. Hireluk changed that opinion for him. He reveals he has dynamite, which he will use to destroy the castle once they get there. Dr. Kureha asks Chopper if he is worried about Luffy. Chopper responds that he does not need to be, since Luffy is a pirate. Sure enough, Luffy is unharmed by Wapol's cannon and uses Gomu Gomu no bow gun to fire Wapol upward, getting him stuck in the top of the dome. He sees Hireluk's flag on another spire of the castle where Luffy replanted it after he tried to shoot it down. Kureha tells Chopper that the end of the Drum Kingdom has finally come, as Chopper remembers Dr. Hireluk. Luffy tells Wapol not to mess with the flag if he is not prepared to suffer the consequences. Ignoring pleas from Wapol, including an offer to make him the Vice King, Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Bazooka to launch Wapol far away from the island. The drum ropeway gondola arrives at the castle. Luffy pounces Zoro and Usopp from the top of the castle, at first thinking Zoro was one of Wapol's men because he was wearing one of their coats. He then tells Vivi that Nami and Sanji are fine. As Dalton makes his way off the gondola, Luffy says he was beating up the king and Dalton realizes Wapol has been defeated. He also adds that the reindeer beat up Wapol's minions. Dalton notices Chopper, who is hiding behind a tree, and remembers him from the ambush on Dr. Hireluk. Realizing Chopper has always been fighting for them, he bows to the reindeer, thanking him and vowing that the kingdom will be reborn. The other villagers arrive and identify Chopper as a monster. Dalton tries to stop their fear as Usopp also cries out that he is a monster. Luffy tells him not to call Chopper a monster as he is their new crewmate. Chopper runs off and Luffy gives chase. Hireluk swore that he would somehow make cherry blossoms bloom in Drum Kingdom, a miracle he was certain would save the nation. Kureha was skeptical, but Hireluk was certain the vision would save his people, just as he was convinced they had saved him. In the present, Chopper is sitting atop Drum Castle following the end of the Luffy's fight with Wapol, contemplating his time with Doctor, and thinking of his Jolly Roger. He also remembers how Hireluk told him once that he should go out to sea someday, so he can see how small his problems really are. He is soon found by Luffy, who resumes chasing Chopper to make him part of the crew. Kureha rounds up the wounded, including Dalton, Sanji, and Nami, and returns them to a room. She deals roughly with Sanji's back, which he re-injured in the battle. She then asks Dalton for the key to the castle's armory. Dalton says that Wapol would have had the key and it likely went flying along with him. Nami speaks up, eager to negotiate terms of payment. She asks Kureha to waive the medical fees for the crew and discharge her and Sanji immediately. Korea demands all the treasure and supplies on the going merry as payment, and that they remain for 2 more days to fully heal. Nami then reveals the key to the armory, which she swiped from Wapel during their encounter. Korea takes the key and agrees to waive payment. Although she says they have to remain in the castle, she tells Nami she has a coat in her room and that there are no guards present. She also says Sanji's treatment is complete, permitting her to leave with him if she so chooses. Chopper finally returns to the roof, thinking he gave Luffy the slip. He thinks it is best not to join the pirates. He then hears Luffy call out to him from below. Zoro and Usopp are convinced that Chopper does not want to go, but Chopper actually does. Chopper finally jumps down and confronts Luffy as Nami and Vivi drag Sanji out from the castle. Chopper tries to explain that he can never be on Luffy's crew because he is a reindeer, blue-nosed, and a monster, even though he really wants to be a pirate. As he invites Luffy to return some time, Luffy cries out for Chopper to shut up and come with him anyway. Chopper is moved to tears, finally having friends who do not care that he is different. The others smile, except Sanji, who is still unconscious, and Zoro, who says that yelling "shut up" is not the way to make friends. The Straw Hats give Chopper some time to say goodbye to Korea while Usopp and Luffy get the drum ropeway ready. Korea is in the armory, supervising the soldiers moving the cannons outside. She returns to the room, finding only Dalton is there, who confirms that the others have left. Chopper finds her there and tells her that he is leaving to become the doctor of the Straw Hat Pirates. She berates him, accusing him of having no gratitude for her training. Chopper says he is every bit a man as a reindeer, but Korea starts to throw her ornamental arms at him, saying he will only leave if he passes through her. Chopper runs away, with Korea chasing him through the castle. As they run, Nami wonders about the commotion growing in the castle. Chopper goes to walk point and hitches into Korea's sleigh. Korea yells to him as he pulls out of the castle that he is following a crazy fantasy just like Hireluk. Chopper thinks she is wrong because Hireluk completed his research before he died. He calls out to the Straw Hats to get into the sleigh, arriving right when Usopp finishes preparing the ropeway. The nearby villagers look into the sky, finding an apparent flying reindeer. In reality, Chopper is running down the ropeway with Korea's sleigh and the Straw Hats towing Luffy behind. Chopper contemplates happier times during his medical training as he runs away. Sanji comes to as they get to ground and run for the shoreline. Korea watches from the top of the ropeway, and Dalton joins her. She says that her pet simply ran away, and that she simply does not like long goodbyes. She tells Dalton to join her by the assembled cannons so she can give Chopper and the Straw Hats a proper send-off. Chopper wonders if Hireluk really completed his research, or if he was just lying to make Chopper feel better at the end of his life. A flashback shows Hireluk explaining his research to Korea. The people outside the drum castle fire the cannons, leaving the villagers to wonder if the battle is resuming. Chopper stops and watches as something incredible happens. Hireluk explained that the dust he created would color the snow, turning it into a pink color. Fired above the mountain, it makes the mountain look like a gigantic sakura tree, with the snow looking like falling petals. Korea still does not understand what Hireluk was thinking. Upon seeing the fruition of his father figure's work, Chopper bursts into tears. The people in the kingdom are moved as well, and Korea bids Chopper one last farewell. As they sail away from Drum Island, the Straw Hats gaze with wonder at the Sakura effect over the island. Usopp wonders why Chopper looks so distant, sitting on a railing as if lost in thought. The others are not worrying about that. Sanji says his first trip as a man is a rite of passage. His thoughts are on Hireluk and Korea. It does not take long before the horseplay begins, with Luffy entertaining the others with his nose chopsticks trick. Soon, the boys try to get Chopper in on the fun, with Usopp offering him a drink, Sanji inviting him to sing with them, and Luffy offering him the nose chopsticks. He crawls away, still feeling a bit overwhelmed by the attention. Nami gets Chopper's attention and tells him that his new friends can get a little out of hand occasionally. Chopper starts to warm up to the thought of actually belonging to a group of friends. Vivi is doting over Karoo, who she found frozen in a river. Zoro jokes by saying that he probably fell. Chopper asks Karoo about it himself, and finds out that he jumped in after Zoro, thinking he was in trouble. After hearing this, Nami hits Zoro. Chopper reveals he can talk to animals at this point. Nami is amazed at this skill in addition to his medical skills. The others ask what she means by medical skills, and find out he was trained by Korea to be a doctor. Luffy just thought they were getting a cool talking reindeer with 7 transformations. Sanji just thought Chopper was emergency food. At this point, Chopper remembers his medical bag, thinking he left it at Drum Island. Nami then holds up his medical bag, telling him it was inside the sleigh. Chopper does not remember packing it and realizes that Korea must have put it in there, anticipating his departure. Nami gets annoyed as the boys resume their revelry. She then finds Chopper trying out the nose chopsticks. As things get crazy, Usopp proposes a toast for their new crewmate. Chopper then says that he has never had this much fun before. Back on Drum Island, Korea and Dalton continue to talk. Korea says the real miracle of Hiruluk's cherry blossoms was sending Chopper out on his own. Dalton begins talking about his plans now that Wapol is gone. He had wanted to leave to atone for his past working along Wapol, but he has since determined that he can atone better by helping to reform the kingdom. Korea thinks he has what it takes to lead the new country. Dalton then remembers an incident 10 years before, involving Wapol at a Levely. He remembers being impressed of Vivi's father and the king of Arabasta, Nefertari Cobra. The subject is Revolutionist Dragon and Wapol is highly disinterested in the proceedings. King Cobra calls him out for his dismissive attitude and Wapol gets mad. Afterward, Wapol gets his revenge by hitting Cobra's daughter and pretending it was some sort of accident. She got up, smiled, and forgave Wapol for the accident in public. Not long after, Dalton caught sight of her crying with Igaram over the pain. He greatly respected the child for the dignity she carried herself with. The Ishi-20 who were previously commissioned by Wapol pledged their allegiance to Dalton, begging him to allow them to help the country. Someone runs up and hands Dalton Luffy's wanted poster. He says that a week before, a young man entered Rebel. He noted that, oddly, it did not snow that day. The young man was looking for Blackbeard, but missed him. He then presented the man a wanted poster, saying he was looking for a guy wearing a straw hat. He was asked that, if Luffy showed up, to tell him to look for Ace in Arabasta in the next 10 days. The man is then run off when it is found he skipped out on a bill at a nearby restaurant. Recognizing the name on the wanted poster, Korea mentions that the Will of D is still alive, revealing that the previous Pirate King's name was actually Gold D. Roger. The next day, Chopper is sitting by the bow of the Going Merry with Luffy, wondering at the vastness of the ocean. Suddenly, a giant bird flies over, and Luffy calls out to it. The bird starts to fly toward the boat head-on and swoops just above the bow, grabbing Luffy. Chopper freaks out, thinking Luffy has been eaten. Zoro tells Chopper to calm down, saying that he should not worry about Luffy unless he actually calls for help. Sure enough, Luffy grabs the giant bird's beak and uses Gomu Gomu no propeller to bring it down. While the other guys are mad that he interrupted a card game, he presents the bird as fresh meat for Sanji to deal with. Chopper thinks the adventure was incredible. Nami then comes back, telling the guys they will be at Arabasta soon. The Straw Hats get Chopper caught up on their current mission returning Vivi to Arabasta so they can prevent a coup by Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Crocodile is abusing his authority as a world government privateer with his Baroque Works crime syndicate to undermine the kingdom. Vivi describes the group's structure, with the 5 officer agent pairs under Crocodile, the 8 frontier agent groups below them, and the billions and millions subordinates throughout, a total force of around 2,000 men. The crew reasons that, if Crocodile's goal is indeed to seize control of Arabasta, then he must be mustering the full strength of Baroque Works to the area to assist in his coup. Luffy seems eager just to beat up Crocodile. Mr. Tubon Kure has arrived at Little Garden and is punishing his navigator. They had been tasked with assassinating Mr. 3, but somehow missed him. They head to Arabasta to resume their mission. Meanwhile, back at Baroque Works headquarters, Crocodile and his Baroque Works assistant, Miss All Sunday, discuss the growing threat of pirate attacks on Arabasta. As the Straw Hats arrive at Arabasta, Nami expects everyone to be on their best behavior. However, Luffy immediately runs off to get food, separating from his crew. The crew then notices that Mr. 3's ship is docked nearby and Vivi remembers that the ship moves by the means of Mr. 3's Doru Doru no Mai. Vivi says that she and Karoo cannot go onto the streets since most of the citizens would immediately recognize her, so Usopp comes up with an idea to walk through the streets while hiding under a blanket. After walking through the streets being concealed under a blanket, they manage to get to a safe place. Vivi says that she plans on going to Yuba, where the rebels' base is, but the only way for them to travel is crossing the desert, so they decided to stock up on supplies. Sanji and Chopper are the only ones who missed her. 3 has not seen, so they go off to buy the supplies. In the middle of a desert, Luffy finds himself lost but then sees smoke in the distance and thinks that the smoke is coming from a restaurant. Sanji and Chopper are buying the supplies they need, but Chopper notices a strange smell which makes him feel uncomfortable and Sanji tells him that it is called perfume. Sanji is distracted by the beautiful women in Arabasta and Chopper cannot bear the aroma, so Sanji tells him that he would take care of the shopping and runs off, yelling for the women. Chopper is exhausted by the heat, so he decides to rest in a truck with enough shade to cool down. He decides to take a nap inside until Sanji returns, but after he falls asleep, the truck starts to travel with Chopper inside. Luffy stands in front of the building that had smoke coming out, but much to his disappointment, he thinks it does not look anything like a restaurant. Luffy sees a pile of bags filled with green powder and comments that it tastes awful after trying a little. He then puts all the bags into the incinerator thinking it must be poison. When the bags are being burnt, Luffy notices the smoke coming out of the chimney turning into a faded green color and then dark clouds start to appear. Rain starts falling from the clouds and a man inside the building realizes the rain and rushes outside. The man starts getting upset since the powder was his great ambition, apologizes and says that he could simply buy it again, but the man says that it is very difficult to get and accidentally reveals that the sale is prohibited, making Luffy realize that the old man is a criminal. When Chopper wakes up, he is confused and panics because the truck is moving. After that, the truck stops as it arrives to where Koza is. Inside a room, a man coming to Koza has a short talk, and Koza says that he and the rebel army will change Arabasta. While Chopper is nervous, Matsuge helps Chopper escape. Chopper asks the camel why he helped him escape, and it replies by saying that it makes him look cool. Chopper thinks that the camel is weird but fun. Chopper then goes back to Nanohana by following the aroma of perfume. Luffy is sitting along with Kamonegi, whose face is swollen. Luffy asks the man what the powder was for, and he replies that the green powder is called dance powder, also known as rain-calling powder. It goes through a complicated process to artificially make rainfall. He then goes on saying that Arabasta has fought against drought since ancient times, but they were not able to use dance powder since it is prohibited by the world government, and that the rebellion is one of the outcomes of the drought. Sanji and Chopper come back from shopping, and they now plan on going to Yuba. Vivi says that this will be a scorching, hot journey, and they put all their strengths into the journey. However, they suddenly remember that Luffy is missing. In Nanohana, a young man previously shown in Drum Kingdom is shown walking the town. A salesman approaches him claiming to have a magical golden apple, but he refuses to buy it. Chopper and Usopp overhear the offer, but Nami and Zoro stop them from being conned after Zoro finds an associate painting them. Zoro notices a man asking if people in the town had seen Luffy using his wanted poster. He is directed to Spice Bean, where the owner knows many of the townspeople. The present Straw Hats wonder why he is looking for Luffy. Zoro notices the tattoo on the man's back and knows he is not a bounty hunter. He then sees Tashigi elsewhere in the town, dressing a shopkeeper down for overpricing swords and hides. Smoker appears, carrying several captured small-time pirates. He is sure Luffy will show up in Arabasta, and has Tashigi take the defeated pirates to the royal army. Zoro wonders where Luffy ran off to. He is wandering across the desert, and starts running when he sees a town nearby, hunger driving him to find food. At the Spice Bean restaurant, patrons are gathered around the young man seen earlier, who is face first in a plate of food. They believe he has dropped dead mid-eating, and suspect he was bitten by a venomous insect. Suddenly, he wakes up, wipes his face off, and resumes eating. He tells everyone he just fell asleep. Shortly after, he falls asleep again. After waking up, the man asks Yoshimoto if he has seen Luffy. They are interrupted by Smoker, who noticed the earlier commotion. He identifies the young man as the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, Portgas D. Ace, startling those present. When asked why he is here, Ace says he is looking for his brother. Luffy is running through Nanohana, tracing the scent of food. Smoker says he is not here for Ace, but will go ahead and try to capture him. Suddenly, Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no rocket to launch himself towards Spice Bean. He rams Smoker and Ace through the restaurant's rear wall and the walls of several adjacent buildings, then demands the restaurant owner make him food. While Luffy is chowing down, Ace and Smoker are on their way back to the restaurant. Ace apologizes to a family for disturbing their meal. Smoker identifies Luffy, though it takes a second for Luffy to remember him from their encounter at Logatown. He stacks all the remaining food in his mouth and runs, with Smoker chasing him. The owner notes that neither Ace nor Luffy paid for their meals. Luffy knows he cannot beat Smoker, so he goes looking for his crew. Smoker sees Tashigi and orders her to look for the Straw Hats as he pursues Luffy. As she runs, knowing that Luffy is in town, she thinks it is likely for Zoro to be there as well. Smoker asks Luffy why he is in Arabasta, to which he responds he came to beat up Crocodile. Smoker asks him how they are connected, but Luffy disappears. On the other side of town, Nami, Zoro, Chopper, and Usopp catch back up with Sanji, Vivi, and Karoo and tell them the Marine is present. They hear a commotion, and Luffy soon runs to them, with Smoker on his trail. Smoker is intercepted by Ace, who uses Kijero to halt his attack, White Blow. Luffy recognizes Ace and is surprised he is a devil fruit user now. Ace tells him he ate the Mera Mera no Mai. He then tells Luffy to run and says he will hold Smoker off. Smoker asks why Ace is helping the Straw Hats, and he says a big brother has to help his little brother. Luffy tells his crew that Ace is his brother, to their shock, as they make their getaway. Ace starts fighting Smoker while the crew is running away to the Going Merry. As they flee, Nami asks Luffy if Ace is really his brother. Luffy confirms this and tells them his name. A bifurcation is in their way, and Nami tells everyone to follow her, but Luffy goes the other way, as he was watching his brother fight. The Straw Hats arrive at the ship and carry all the supplies, only to notice that Luffy is missing. Luffy is sitting on the barrel he was carrying in an alley, but he does not know where his crew went. Ace greets him from the top of a house in the alley and then comes down. They start arm wrestling on top of the barrel Luffy was sitting on, but after struggling, the barrel breaks and the water inside it scatters. They both agree that they are equally strong. Ace invites Luffy and his crew to join the Whitebeard pirates, but Luffy declines. On Smoker's ship, Mr. 11 is left alone, tied to the mast. Some billions get on the deck and Mr. 11 asks them to untie him. They explain that as billions, they are candidates to be promoted to officer agents. Mr. 11 asks them to untie him again, but they shoot him. The billions get off the ship and someone informs them that Fire Fist Ace is in the town. One of them then comments that if they take down Ace, they will surely be promoted to officer agents. Luffy and Ace start searching for Luffy's crew, but as they walk, billions start to surround them without being noticed. After they are gathered, everyone comes out. Luffy and Ace do not care what they say and keep walking, but the billions start a fight. After Luffy sends the leader flying with Gomu Gomu Domu no Bazooka, one of the billions tells his comrades not to be scared by that, and everyone keeps chasing them again. Luffy spots his ship and stretches his arms in order to reach for it. He enters the ship ramming towards Sanji and Chopper. Ace reaches the ship in his boat, but then they spot 5 billion ships coming towards them. Ace tells Luffy that he can handle them, gets in his boat, and starts propelling it with the help of his flames. He then jumps over a ship, and when he lands, he launches a Heiken, destroying the 5 ships consecutively. Smoker is talking to Tashigi and asks what Nefertari Vivi was doing with the straw hats. Tashigi proposes that perhaps she was a hostage to a major scheme, but Smoker does not think so. He thinks that is unlikely since she was getting along with the group as if she was one of them. He says that something big is going to occur, and that he may know where they are heading after Luffy told him he only wanted to beat Crocodile. Usopp, Luffy, and Chopper in the Going Merry are toasting for Ace joining the Straw Hats, but Ace tells them he is not joining them. After that, he explains that he is in search for Blackbeard after he killed one of his crewmates. He also explains that he is heading to Yuba, and Nami tells him that they are going to the same place. Vivi proceeds to explain the route, and after that, they toast for having a fun time together. Citizens are gathered outside the Alubarna Palace to see the king. The guards start to push them, when Nefertari Cobra comes out and tells them that everyone who wants to speak with him can come inside. He cannot solve their problems right now, but he can hear and empathize with them. He then tells the people that he will make the kingdom great again, even if it costs him his life. After that, he goes along with Pell and wonders where and what Vivi is doing. In the Going Merry, Luffy and Usopp are playing with the wet rice and Sanji hits them and tells them not to play with food. He then says that if they have nothing to do, they can wash the dishes. He says he has to pack lunches and Ace tells him that he can help, but Sanji declines because Ace is a guest. Usopp and Luffy start washing the dishes, but Sanji scolds them because they are using mop water to wash the dishes. Zoro is training while Chopper is feeling the breeze made by his swings. Vivi asks Nami if they can stop, as she has an important task for Karoo. They are outside the ship on a shore and Vivi asks Karoo if he can deliver a letter for his father, even though he has to cross a desert by himself. In that letter, she has written all the schemes of Baroque works. Karoo accepts and departs rapidly. On the deck of the ship, Ace suggests to Zoro that Crocodile might have a deeper goal than just usurping the throne. Crocodile lights a cigar and talks to himself about his views on Arabasta, the kingdom of sand, when Miss All Sunday starts walking towards him. She then informs Crocodile that the billion ships that were at the port town of Nanohana have been all wiped out by a single person, and that they are confirming the information just as they speak. Crocodile tells Miss All Sunday that they have more volunteers to billions, but if someone tries to get in his way, she should crush them. Miss All Sunday responds that she has already sent the Aramaki runners to contact the others. The Straw Hats arrive at the desert and Chopper comments that he bets it will be hot. Nami answers him by telling him that it gets over 50 Daichi in the desert. Sanji sees that Nami and Vivi have full clothes now and is upset that they changed their clothes. Vivi tells him that any exposed skin in the desert will result in a sunburn. Sanji then starts rolling in the deck as the other head to exit the ship. Zoro is about to drop the anchor when he sees figures inside the water. Kung Fu Dogongs get out of the water and Luffy thinks they are seals, but Vivi screams what they are. Usopp tries to fight one of them, but is defeated. Luffy defeats one, but Vivi explains that if you win, they become your pupils. Luffy starts training with them, and they want to follow him afterwards, but Vivi tell him that they cannot cross the desert. Chopper comes up with the idea of giving them food so they stay at the shore. When he takes out a piece of meat, all the Kung Fu Dogongs top Chopper. After that, the Kung Fu Dogongs are giving them a farewell with a drum and Sanji gets mad because Luffy just lowered the supplies of the Straw Hats. The pirates arrive to Irimalu. Vivi explains how it used to be known and why now it is a ghost town. Dance powder was used to rain in Alibarna and people called it the King's Miracle. After that, a load of the powder was sent as if the king had ordered it, making it seem like the king was provoking the droughts in surrounding towns. Luffy gets angry and destroys a building with a punch. He then tells Vivi that he is itching to complete their mission. Everyone then heads towards Yuba. The Straw Hats are on their journey to Yuba. Luffy is tired and thirsty, so the crew let him drink a mouthful of water, but he fills his cheeks to the fullest, so Nami hits him. During the night in their camp, Vivi starts talking to Ace about Luffy. Ace then tells Vivi that Luffy has always been that way since he was a child, and that he has not changed a bit. He also tells her that he always had charisma and befriends people around him. In the morning, Luffy finds an extremely poisonous scorpion, but mistakes it for a shrimp. When Vivi wakes up and sees Luffy holding the scorpion, she yells to leave it alone since a sting is extremely poisonous. They continue their journey and Luffy proposes to have lunch because he is hungry. Vivi tells him that they are only 1/10 of their way and Luffy makes up a proverb for eating. She then tells Luffy they can have a meal when they arrive to the next rocks and Luffy runs ahead. Later, Luffy invites the crew to play rock, paper, Hasami, and whoever wins will carry all the equipment. He wins and starts to carry the equipment, but then complains, saying that it's unfair since he won the game. Usopp spots the next rocks and after telling the crew, Luffy runs ahead extremely fast. As he enters the rocks, a bird lands on one of them. He starts to hear noises, so he gets further into the spot, seeing a lot of birds on the ground and moaning. He grabs one of them and says to him that he will get a doctor, rushing out for Chopper. The crew returns to the place only to find the birds are missing and their stuff all gone. Vivi explains that Warsagi are bandit birds that take advantage of travelers to steal their belongings. The birds are in front of them, showing off the things they got from them. Luffy starts chasing the birds and Vivi tell him to not do that, but he continues anyway. As he is chasing them, one bird falls and carnivorous plants start to get out of the sand. One of the plants eats Luffy, but he is able to break free. He then sees a camel that is going to be eaten by a plant and saves him after he asks him for help. After that, something big starts moving behind them. Ace apologizes for all the trouble his brother always brings, but the crew thinks it is okay. Usopp spots Luffy far away riding a camel rapidly towards them. They wonder what is chasing him until Vivi remembers there are giant lizards that wait for their prey below the sand. Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy are able to beat it, but another one appears behind Ace. The lizard is able to trap Ace in his mouth, but it then explodes with fire inside it and Ace comes out. The Straw Hats eat the meat of the gigantic lizard and Nami names the camel Matsuge. The camel then is willing to carry her and Vivi through the desert. Everyone then continues their journey. The Straw Hats are on their journey through the desert and Luffy is really thirsty. Vivi and Nami get ahead of them because they are riding Matsuge. Zoro is pulling Chopper because he cannot stand the heat. Suddenly Luffy starts seeing that a tsunami is coming and Usopp remembers he let him drink a cactus back during their journey. Chopper realizes that it was a psychoactive cactus which causes hallucinations. Luffy tries to hit the others and Chopper injects him with a tranquilizer. Zoro is pulling Luffy and they continue their journey, but they suddenly notice they've lost sight of Nami and Vivi as well as Ace. Luffy wakes up and everyone blames him for getting lost. Usopp starts hearing something, and when they pass the dunes, a pirate ship is sailing through the sand. Usopp then sees that the pirates have captured Nami and Vivi. Luffy starts to run towards the ship and the others follow him. He then stretches his arms and he tangles them around the mast. He rams into the mast, breaking it. The mast then falls over the deck of the ship. A giant scorpion comes from below the sand in front of Ace, and he tells it not to dare do it. Luffy is on the deck of the ship with the pirates, telling them that he is really thirsty. Nami asks if he did not come to save them, but he says that he only came for water. The captain of the pirates walks towards Luffy and mentions that they are the Barbar Pirates. He also mentions that they have a saying aside from friends, everything alive in the desert can be eaten. Luffy has a chit-chat with Barbarossa, and he later apologizes for treating Luffy's friends that way. He says that they were really hungry and wanted to eat something. Then one pirate says that they cannot leave because the main mast is broken and without it, they will not have enough thrust to go through the sand. Luffy decides to collect wood for the pirates in order to fix the ship, since he is the one responsible for breaking it. Ace is walking and the scorpion is behind him, defeated with smoke coming out of it. He then says that he warned him. Meanwhile, Luffy and Vivi are in trouble after Rasa pushed their sled into quicksand. Sanji and Zoro are working inside the ship of Barbarossa and Nami is talking with him. The Sandora desert bandits approach the ship's location to fight the pirates. A Sandora giant bug is carrying a large ball of dung over a dune, only to release it towards the Barbar pirates' ship. Barbarossa tries to stop the dung after it has gained momentum, but he is quickly overcome, so Zoro cuts it into pieces and Sanji breaks the debris coming towards the ship. Meanwhile, Luffy is able to reach for the sled that Rasa is piloting in order to pull their sled back on course. Luffy and the others arrive at the oasis, only to find everything is buried. Here, they learn about Rasa's backstory. During dusk, Ace is seen riding the gecko and screams after Luffy. Luffy and his crew say their parting goodbyes to the sand pirates. As they're leaving, Zoro questions the whereabouts of Luffy's brother, Ace. Luffy claims that Ace would eventually show up out of nowhere, and the crew begins their journey to the city of Ido. Meanwhile, in Ido, a group of Kamu's rebels are having a meal with the mayor, discussing the strength of their troops and telling how the rebel and royal army would soon have to clash. Suddenly, one of Kamu's men rushes up to him, exclaiming about the arrival of sand pirates. Kamu's decision was to run and hide, to the other's surprise. As Kamu begins to walk out, the lizard that Ace was accompanying shows up, and behind them Ace is sitting at the table eating their food. The men call Ace a food thief, and Ace goes on to beat the living crap out of them. Kamu watches, petrified, and bows down to Ace in fear and begs for his help against the sand pirates. Ace agrees to do so, but on a condition. While riding on the lizard to defeat the sand pirates, he runs into Luffy and his crew, saying how the rebels believed that they were sand pirates. Ace explains to Vivi how there are rebels in town, but are actually mere hoodlums. Vivi gets upset and says how there is nothing wrong with villagers wanting to protect their village, even if it means posing as rebels. She brings up the idea of testing them to see if they are strong enough to carry the burden of protecting the village on their shoulders. Kamu and his men are seen hiding in barrels, questioning whether Ace had beat the sand pirates or not. As Kamu begins to leave once again, all the villagers show up outside his door cheering him on for the oncoming fight against the sand pirates. The mayor walks up to them and wishes them the best against the sea pirates. Kamu is confused as he was sure they were sand pirates. The mayor then goes to show him the wanted poster of Belai 30 million on Luffy's head, and he becomes frightened. They begin to secretly devise a plan to outrun the pirates once they leave town, but as they open the gates, the Straw Hat pirates surround them menacingly. Go, 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 go. The rebels stand their ground as the Straw Hats begin to attack. Kamu and his men decide to stop being cowards and stand their ground. Vivi is satisfied with this and signals for the Straw Hats to retreat. The Straw Hats, Vivi and Ace are still traveling together on their way to the Yuba Oasis. Vivi intends to meet with the rebel army there. Luffy and Usopp, thirsty and tired, began struggling with each to get a drink of water from the skin bottle. Sanji decides to save his for Nami and Vivi, but Luffy tries to take his water bottle away from him. At that point, Luffy, Usopp, and Sanji begin fighting over the water in the skin bottle. Nami asks Vivi to tell her more about the rebel army, and Vivi went to tell her of the events that occurred 11 years back. A young Koza is seen before King Cobra complaining that his village is dried up and the king is doing nothing to help. The king, in turn, told him that the weather is commanded by God and that he has no power over nature. Just then, Toto arrived beseeching the king that he would accept the punishment for his rude son. Cobra promised to look after the village affected by the drought and told Toto to remain in Alibarna. Koza, still upset at the king, said the king does not understand the feelings of the people and fled his sight. Cobra then told Toto that Koza is a good child because he cares for the people and their feelings. Vivi, standing by the hallway, saw Koza running down crying and called him a crybaby. Igaram is seen telling Cobra that the country's budget will not suffice to help the whole village affected by the drought, and Cobra, comically hitting him on the head, told him to take money out of their personal wallets. Just then, Vivi appeared before her father and told him she got into a fight but lost. Igaram was angry that Koza hit the princess, and Toto was pleading to the king for him to commit suicide as a way of apology. Cobra told them to stay out of it, for it is simply a children's quarrel. In the village, Vivi challenged Koza for the position of leader of the Sunasuna clan. After their fight, Koza announced Vivi as the new assistant leader of the Sunasuna clan. Igaram and Cobra were watching and hiding, and Cobra commented that Vivi has made friends, which is important for the next ruler to have. Vivi, after joining the clan, became close to Koza's family. Vivi was about to be kidnapped when the Sunasuna clan launched an offensive against the kidnappers to protect Vivi. Meanwhile, in the desert, a scorpion came out from the ground and was about to attack Luffy, making Zoro, Sanji, Chopper, and Luffy all together beat the scorpion. The Sunasuna clan continued to fight the kidnappers when a third one appeared grabbing Vivi. Vivi bit him and ran towards the ruins. Igaram and Cobra appeared after the children have been defeated and inquired on what had happened. They were told, and they went after Vivi. At the ruins, the kidnappers were looking for Vivi, and one found her. Koza came from behind and hit him with a club. The kidnapper and Koza went at each other, but Koza defeated him by hitting him in the head but got cut by the kidnapper's sword near his left eye. Just then, the other two arrived, and when they were about to fight Koza, when Igaram and Cobra knocked them out, Hell and Shaka also defeated the rest of the kidnapping ring crew. Vivi, upon Koza's recovery, cried and told him not to give his life to save hers, after remembering their resolve to protect her. Cobra thanked Koza for his noble deed, although Koza said he did it for a friend. Cobra asked if Koza loved the country, and he replied yes, saying it is the country of his birth, and Cobra commented that he also loves the country. Koza told Vivi about Toto accepting the position of a representative to build the oasis of Yuba into a town, since it is the hub of western Arabasta. Koza told her he was leaving with his father and would help build Yuba with his own 2 hands. Koza, upon leaving, told Vivi to become a great princess. In the present, Nami comments that Vivi's friend Koza seems like a good person and asks what that had to do with the rebels. Vivi then revealed to Nami that Koza was the leader of the rebel army. A man named Scorpion is shown sleeping on top of a large rock outlook with a bird that looks like an ostrich wearing a helmet called Popo. Food is scattered across the ground. Popo walks over to Scorpion and wakes him up. When Scorpion asks what's the matter, Popo points to rising smoke in the distance. Scorpion grabs his spyglass and points it to where the smoke is rising up. He sees the Straw Hats and Ace. Once Scorpion realizes who it is, sweat covers his face and he gets excited. He has been waiting for the day that he finally tracked down Porcus D. Ace. The Straw Hats and Ace are eating. Luffy and Usopp are asking for seconds. Sanji kicks them, telling them to stop being greedy. After hearing this, Luffy steals some from Zoro's plate. They all start fighting. Vivi starts talking to Nami and asks why every meal turns into a fight. Nami responds by telling her to ignore it. They both admire Porcus D. Ace for eating quietly and cleaning his fork and plate. He sure is different, remarks Nami, comparing Ace to Luffy. Nami starts talking about how much Ace is worth, and that his bounty makes bounty hunters drool. Switching back to Scorpion, he is loading a rocket launcher and starts aiming at Ace. He says, with this one shot, I'll settle everything. He lights the fuse on his rocket. Popo sneezes on the fuse, putting it out without Scorpion noticing. Nami starts getting ready to set off, traveling to Yuba. She tells the rest of the Straw Hats to start getting ready by cleaning up. Two shadows appear behind some rocks without anyone noticing. Then all of a sudden a piece of meat starts to rise with no one touching it. This catches Luffy's attention. It is then revealed that it is rising due to a fishing rod pulling it up. Luffy, still not noticing this, thinks that the meat is floating and talking. Once the two shadows pull the meat in, they start running away. Luffy chases after it. It is then revealed as two boys trying to get food because they are starving. They had not eaten in 10 days. As they start eating it, Ace asks if they came from the Badland. They are shocked for a second that they were caught. They then get aggressive and scared of Ace, asking who are you, and saying that they won't give back the food. The eldest brother pulls out a revolver and says, one move and you're a dead man. Ace does not appear to be scared. Instead, he smirks and calmly states, dangerous things like that won't frighten me. The brother fires the weapon and Ace easily deflects it. The Straw Hats come up behind Ace asking who they are. The eldest brother drops the revolver and says, we have something to ask of you. We need you to find and capture a man. The two boys pull out a picture of Scorpion. Returning to Scorpion, he is still waiting for the fuse to go off, even though it is no longer burning. He asks if Popo is ready, but he then realizes that Popo ate the fuse. Scorpion screams at Popo. Ace catches Luffy's attention, who is right under where they are located. Luffy hops up and starts talking to them. In the commotion, Scorpion loses track of Ace. The two boys tell Ace they have traveled all across the Badlands looking for him. Usopp asks who is the person they are looking for. Nami tells Usopp it is a bounty hunter called Scorpion. Ace tells them that he has business with Scorpion because the person who defeated Blackbeard and Yuba was called Scorpion. Luffy finds out the person he is talking to is the bounty hunter Scorpion. He tells Luffy that he is going to find and kill Fire Fist Ace. Luffy tells him that is funny, and Scorpion responds by telling him, don't mock me, in a playful tone. The two boys realize who Ace is. They ask Ace if he is the real Ace, but he is too busy scanning the desert for something. Usopp asks if there is something wrong. He responds by saying, two men and a bird. Scorpion rides up with Luffy and says, I am Scorpion and I am going to defeat you. He is very nervous, and it is obvious he is faking everything. They set up a true battle between him and Ace. Scorpion shoots a net at Ace, but he knocks it away back onto Scorpion. Then Ace quickly punches and defeats him. Ace tells Scorpion that he could not have defeated Blackbeard because he is too weak. The eldest boy yells, that is enough, Dad. Everyone is surprised that Scorpion is their father. It turns out that they were originally farmers. Once the drought set in, their farm died. The father told his children that he would become a bounty hunter, take down Ace, and return rich. His children now tell him that he is no match for Fire Fist Ace. He chuckles and nervously says, what are you saying? Your dad is now the world's greatest bounty hunter. Scorpion gives a speech to his children and returns to the fight. His children beg him not to. Just as he is about to launch the rocket, his children tell him to stop. He drops the rocket, it goes off and hits a rock. The rock explodes, sending smaller rocks towards them. Ace then saves all three of them from a certain death. They then return home to the Badlands. At the end of all of this, Ace leaves. Before he leaves, he gives Luffy a piece of paper and tells Luffy that next time they see each other, it will be at the top of Pirates Summit. This episode starts off with Luffy hallucinating because of dehydration. The crew is very confused on what he is doing, as he runs around the desert screaming random names. Nami tells Zoro to get Chopper, but they see Chopper has collapsed because of the heat. Since Chopper has collapsed and cannot help Luffy, Nami tells Zoro to take care of Luffy. When Zoro starts walking towards Luffy to get him, Nami and the rest of the crew start off again, as they want to get to Yuba as fast as possible. When they start off, Vivi thinks to herself that Luffy Zoro and Chopper probably will not be all right, foreshadowing that they will not be. Zoro approaches Luffy, dragging Chopper, and tells Luffy to calm down. Luffy, who is throwing punches at his hallucinogenic enemies, mistakes Zoro as Crocodile. He punches Zoro very hard, invoking Zoro to start fighting back. Zoro does not want to hurt Luffy, so he puts his swords away. He starts the beginning of a fist fight. The two continue throwing punches until they both punch each other very hard. This knocks both of them out. They collapse unconscious into the desert sand. Chopper then wakes up confused on what happened, as he was asleep when they were fighting. Chopper runs over to where Zoro and Luffy are and wakes Zoro up using a pungent-smelling medicine. Zoro asks Chopper where the group is, and Chopper replies telling him they were gone when he arose. At first, Zoro says they will just follow the group's footprints, but then he realizes the desert wind will have eroded them away. The scene then changes to Nami and Vivi in an ancient ruin. Vivi remarks how kingdoms change and fade away, that civilizations grow and die on this land, but the people stay the same. It is clear that she is afraid that her father's kingdom will fall to Baroque works and become a fading kingdom. Nami tells her not to worry, that Luffy will take them down along with Crocodile. Vivi agrees, but she is still worried. Back to Luffy, Chopper, and Zoro. After a while, Luffy wakes up and is confused on why they are alone. Zoro punches him, telling Luffy that it is his fault and now they are lost. They set off in a random direction. Once Luffy realizes what happened, he starts complaining. Zoro and Chopper walk on ahead. They start talking about why each one joined the crew. Chopper remarks that the crew seems so wild compared to him. Zoro then starts talking about how everyone has different goals, and their goals to be the best in what they do unite them. While they are still talking, Luffy spots some shade and uses his rubber arm rockets to propel the three of them to the cave. Zoro sits on a rock that turns into a sinkhole. He falls into a cavern. He spots the poneglyph and wonders what it is. Luffy and Chopper then both fall into the cavern and join Zoro. When their eyes have adjusted, they realize they are in a dome built by humans. Zoro, Luffy, and Chopper decide to leave and catch up with the rest of the group. Luffy swings his arm trying to get up and out of the underground dome, but misses, making it slowly collapse. He finally succeeds and zooms out of the dome. They are sent flying into the sky. When they land, Chopper smells that the wind has changed. He catches wind of Nami's perfume. They head off in that direction to meet up with the group. The perspective changes back to the rest of the group. Nami and Vivi start talking about Luffy and how the crew came about. Nami says that in the pirate crew each person has an ability. Zoro has his swords, Nami is a navigator, Usopp is the liar, Luffy is the fighter, Chopper is the doctor, and Sanji is the cook. Each one of them plays a crucial role in the fabric of the Straw Hat Pirates, and without each and every one of them doing their role, the crew would fall apart. This is how they can trust each other, through the fact that they know each one of them has some unique trait that allows them to be able to get through anything. Vivi is impressed with her answer and overall likes that theory. She turns her head and sees Luffy, Chopper, and Zoro coming over the horizon. She now knows Nami is right, that she does not have to worry because each crew member is powerful and loyal. Luffy, looking at the piece of paper Ace gave him. He ponders what it is and why Ace gave it to him. The rest of the crew also look at it and also conclude that it is just a piece of paper. Since it is so important to Luffy, Nami sews it on the inside of his hat. Vivi is looking onward and tells the rest of the crew that Yuba is only past the distant rock. Meanwhile, in Crocodile's lair, he and Miss All Sunday are discussing their plan. Miss All Sunday says that all preparations are in place and they can carry out the plan in 2 days. Crocodile is pleased and tells her the other agents are coming from Spider Cafe to meet them. In Spider Cafe, agents start gathering. The only one left is Mr. 1. The other agents start getting impatient and just want to leave. Mr. 2 and his men put on a dance show, but all of a sudden Mr. 1 burst through the wall, knocking over one of Mr. 2's men. Mr. 2 and Mr. 1 start fighting because Mr. 2 is angry that he knocked over one of his men like that. Miss Doublefinger quickly puts an end to it. She says that they received word to go to Rain Base and meet the boss. They all go into a carriage that starts off. Luffy and his group finally make it to Yuba. It is being ravaged by a sandstorm. After it stops, they can see that it has been abandoned. Yuba is not the oasis they were expecting. The only one left is the founder of Yuba, and they find out the rebel army has relocated to Kataria. When Luffy calls Vivi over, the old man recognizes her. He runs over to her and she realizes he is Toto from her youth. His son is the rebel army's leader. It is clear that he is very loyal to the crown and feels terrible that his son is leading the revolution. There is then a flashback of Vivi and his son playing together when they are younger. Toto is tasked with starting a new city called Yuba, and so the son and Vivi part ways. Vivi and Toto have a strong connection. Since Vivi and Toto know each other, crew decides to stay in Yuba for the night. Toto shares stories of how great Yuba was before the 3 years of drought. They all fall asleep, but not before deciding they will set off in the morning. In Yuba, Luffy learns that Toto was entrusted by Cobra to watch over the land and figures out a way to stop the sandstorm. At rain dinners, the officer agents learn that their leader, Mr. Zero, is actually Crocodile and learn that they are going to overthrow the country during the war. Mr. 3 appears and reveals that the Straw Hats are alive. As a punishment for his failure to kill them, Crocodile dries him up and drops him into a bananawani pit. All Sunday tell the rebel army to kill everyone on sight. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats depart to Kataria, but Luffy stops. When Luffy tells Vivi of his plan to defeat Crocodile and denounces Vivi's plan to stop the rebellion as naive, the two get into a struggle. During this, Vivi reveals that she will only risk her own life. Luffy, however, says that she should be putting their lives on the line together and to trust her friends, and Vivi is moved to tears by his statement. Vivi, still in tears, declares that their plans of stopping the rebellion have changed to finding Crocodile. Nami states that this seems to be the quickest way of stopping the fighting from happening. Vivi takes out a map of Arabasta and shows them Alibarna's location, the capital of Arabasta where her father is, and Kataria, where the rebel army is camped. Sanji supposes that they have to get to Crocodile before the rebels invade Alibarna. She also shows them where Crocodile lives, which is Rain Base, and tells them it is a day's journey from where they are. On their way to Rain Base, Usopp asks for a sip of Luffy's water given to him by Toto, but Luffy refuses to give Usopp any since the old man had to dig all night to fill the container, and that they can't just drink it like it is regular water. Meanwhile, in the rebel base in Kataria, a boy is begging the leader of the rebel army, Koza, to join the fight. Koza dissuades the boy, but he remains determined, stating he wants to fight. Koza then says that that is the reason he can't let the boy join them, because none of the rebels want to fight, and that the only reason they do is because they have to. Koza tells the boy to leave, and then starts to discuss their plans to invade Alibarna with his men. Once they have gathered all the weapons they need from all the rebel towns, they will then begin their all-out attack on the capital. In Alibarna, Shaka suggests to Cobra that they must take action towards the rebel army before they attack the capital. Cobra angrily refuses to attack the rebels, that in doing so would be the true destruction of their kingdom. He recalls the dance powder incident and surmises that since that incident, someone has been trying to tear apart their country, and that before they should act, they must determine who is really behind all of it. Chaka argues that whoever is behind it has not made himself known, and that they cannot sit back and wait for whoever it is to divide them, to which the king remained adamant in his refusal to act. While Chaka and Pell discuss Vivi and Igaram's efforts to determine the mastermind of the turmoil within their kingdom, the palace guard informs them that Karoo has returned. They rush to see Karoo and find Cobra reading the letter Vivi wrote, informing him that Crocodile is without a doubt the person who is trying to destroy Arabasta Kingdom. She tells them that Igaram died protecting her. Furthermore, she says that she has teamed up with an amazing group of people who will help her save Arabasta. Having learned of the identity of the mastermind behind their country's troubles, Cobra orders his forces to march onto Rain Base. Chaka and Pell discourage this plan, saying that they will have to plan the attack and that Crocodile has the hearts of some of the citizens, even more than the king. Moreover, they are worried that the absence of the royal army from the capital will make it vulnerable to the rebel army's occupation. Cobra replies that he doesn't care if the rebels destroy the palace since it is only a building. It doesn't matter that the royal army falls in the end. As long as Crocodile is defeated, the country can still be reborn. But if they battle the rebel army, Crocodile will win. They start preparations to take down Crocodile, with Chaka readying the war council and Pell scouting ahead to conduct reconnaissance. Meanwhile, in Rain Base, Luffy's group have finally arrived. They plan to lay low since they are under the assumption that Crocodile already knows they are on the island. However, Luffy and Usopp loudly enter a bar where Smoker and Tashigi are staying and inadvertently sit right beside them. At first, they go unnoticed, but eventually the two parties see each other, so Luffy and Usopp run away and are chased by the Marines. They lead the Marines to the other crew members minus Chopper, so their plan of laying low is no longer feasible. The group decides to split up and just meet at Rain Dinners, the casino where Crocodile is. Chopper, after going to the restroom, returns to where everyone was but sees that they are gone. He determines that everyone's split up when he finds everyone's scent coming from different directions. Vivi and Zoro are chased down by Marines, but Zoro lets Vivi go ahead without him. Usopp, Nami, and Sanji are also pursued by Marines, but Sanji asks Usopp to protect Nami so he can deal with the Marines. Nami and Usopp arrive at Rain Dinners and find Zoro there. Luffy arrives shortly after, again being chased by Smoker. The four of them decide to enter the casino without the others in order to escape Smoker. Inside, Crocodile and Miss All Sunday find out of the Straw Hats' arrival and plan to give them a warm welcome. Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Usopp run towards the Rain Dinners casino. They know that without Vivi, they do not know what Crocodile looks like and realize that Vivi is not there with them. They start shouting for both Vivi and Crocodile but realize this is useless. Smoker catches up to them and chases them inside the casino, but the casino security personnel stop him, saying that government employees are not allowed in the casino. He persists in chasing after the group, and the ruckus causes casino security to try and also stop Luffy's group. They are unable to contain the commotion, so the manager, Miss All Sunday, tells the personnel to send them to the VIP room. The group is led to the VIP room and Smoker continues to give chase. Inside, the hallway is split into two, with a sign saying that VIPs should go to the left and pirates should go to the right. The group decides to go to the right, being that they are pirates. This leads to a dead end and a trapdoor. The trapdoor opens and the group, along with Smoker, fall down said trapdoor. Meanwhile, Chopper is still looking for his crewmates and sees Tashigi. He realizes that the Marines are after the Straw Hats and tries to stop her. However, Tashigi bumps into him and falls on top of him, her glasses also falling onto Chopper's eyes. Chopper becomes disoriented and dizzy due to the prescription of Tashigi's eyeglasses. Tashigi, unable to see without them, does not recognize Chopper, who has fallen down. Sanji sees this and hides. Chopper gives back her glasses, but she still does not recognize him. Sanji and Chopper are reunited. In the casino, Luffy's group and Smoker are inside a prison cell. Luffy notices that something is wrong as he is feeling weak all of a sudden. Smoker then hits Luffy with his jit, causing Luffy to fall and feel helpless like he's falling into the sea. Smoker explains that the tip of his weapon is made of sea prism stone, which is a rare mineral that gives off a mystical energy with the same wavelength as the ocean, or basically a solid form of the sea. It affects devil fruit users the same way as if they have fallen into the ocean. As Zoro is about to attack Smoker for attacking Luffy, Crocodile interrupts and tells them to try to get along since they are about to die together anyway. Crocodile tells Smoker that he knows he is there on his own without orders from the government, since he knows the government trusts him completely, being a warlord of the sea. Crocodile then proceeds to tell them that he will deal with them after their guest of honor arrives. Meanwhile, outside Vivi is fending off Baroque Works' billions, and she is knocked down and about to be captured. Shortly after, bullets rain down on the billions from the sky. Pell then swoops down and carries Vivi to safety. Pell updates Vivi on her father's plans and then eliminates the billions who were after her. Just as she is about to leave and find the Straw Hats, Miss All Sunday appears saying that she has been invited to a gathering. Ivy attacks her but is overpowered and falls down. Pell tries to take her down, but Miss All Sunday manages to use her Hana Hana no My Devil Fruit powers and overpowers him too. Miss All Sunday then takes Vivi to the casino. Back inside the prison cell, Luffy's group and Crocodile wait for Vivi and Miss All Sunday to arrive. Vivi arrives and tries to attack Crocodile, but her attack is ineffective as Crocodile has turned into sand. Crocodile reveals that he has eaten the Suna Suna no My fruit, which turns him into a sand human. Crocodile then has Vivi sit down and states that the party is about to begin. Miss All Sunday then agrees and tells everyone that it is already asked what this was. Crocodile then says that Operation Utopia means the demise of the kingdom of Arabasta. Baroque Works' plan to take over Arabasta is set in motion. Crocodile begins explaining to Vivi what Operation Utopia is. The king is kidnapped and replaced by Bentham, who announces that he must eliminate the town of Nanohana and all of its inhabitants to prevent word of the dance powder incident that occurred earlier in the same city from reaching the Marines. But as soon as Bentham gives the order to destroy Nanohana, Koza arrives to confront him. After a brief exchange, Koza attempts to attack Bentham, but is stopped by 2 royal guards and then shot, allowing the royal army to attack Nanohana. Koza, badly wounded, wonders why the rebel army fought. In the midst of the fight, Mr. One and Miss Doublefinger crash into Nanohana on a giant pirate ship they had commandeered by killing everyone on board. The ship then causes massive collateral damage, forcing the city's inhabitants to flee. Bentham then announces that his part of the mission is complete and tells the royal army to burn the city. While fleeing, it is shown that the royal soldiers in Nanohana were actually billions under Bentham's command. Meanwhile, the citizens of Nanohana admit they cannot put out the fire. Koza, still badly wounded, is dragged out of the fire by 2 rebel army soldiers. The same 2 rebel soldiers find a boy who, after discovering that someone had impersonated Cobra, was attacked by Mr. One and Miss Doublefinger. The boy tries to tell them that the king wasn't responsible but is too wounded to speak, and the rebels are framed for the crime. Koza orders the rebel army to move. When one of the rebel soldiers says they don't have enough weapons, another soldier says that the ship that just crashed was an armory ship. Koza proclaims that is like divine guidance. Back at the palace, Chaka is astonished at the Nanohana incident and is told by a royal soldier that all of Arabasta is headed towards the palace. Back at Rain-Base, Crocodile has just finished explaining his plan to Vivi, who is shocked into silence. Eventually, Vivi regains some spirit and attempts to escape with her hands still tied. Chaka orders the royal guards to attack the rebels in order to protect Arabasta. Meanwhile, Koza and the rebels head to Alibarna. The Straw Hat pirates are still locked up in Crocodile's cell. Crocodile taunts the tied-up Vivi with a key to get the locked-up pirates. Vivi is able to get free from the ropes, but the key that Crocodile had accidentally slips from his hands and goes through his trap door where one of his many banana crocodiles eats it. Mr. Zero gives everyone in his VIP room 1 hour to live due to water filling the room. Before he is able to leave with Miss All Sunday, Crocodile gets a call on his responder snail from Mr. Prince, who the Straw Hats recognize as Sanji. Vivi leaves to get Sanji and Chopper to help save the rest of the Straw Hat pirates. The bridge of the casino collapses before Princess Vivi can leave, trapping her inside the casino. But Sanji says that he didn't do it to keep her trapped inside, but rather to keep the Baroque works out of the casino. Chopper distracts Crocodile while Sanji frees the rest of the crew. Smoker reveals to the Straw Hats that Miss All Sunday is a wanted woman, and that the world government has been chasing after her for 20 years, along with a bounty of 70 million, almost as much as crocodiles. Sanji beats up a few banana gators to get the key to the cell. But instead of getting the key, the Straw Hats see Mr. 3 pop out of an alligator's stomach. Mr. 3 retrieves the key and then throws it in the middle of 3 banana gators. While Crocodile and Miss All Sunday are speaking, Crocodile reveals that he had the real key to the cell all along. Usopp has an idea where they could use Mr. 3's devil fruit powers to get them out. By the time Crocodile and Miss All Sunday get back to the room, they see that the Straw Hats and Smoker have left the cell. After Luffy tells Zoro to save Smoker, he lets the Straw Hats off, while the rest of the Marines chase after them. The crew runs away while Luffy says that they are not going to stop running until they reach Alabasta. The Straw Hat pirates are seen escaping to the east from pursuing Marines. However, Smoker calls them off, claiming that he is tired and that they won't catch them. Smoker then tells a subordinate to order for backup from surrounding Marine warships straight to Arabasta. Chopper and Matsuge seen riding a huge crab creature called a moving crab towards the scent of Nami's perfume. Apparently, Matsuge is friends with several animals, including the moving crab. However, as the Straw Hats, Vivi, Matsuge, and the moving crab head towards Alabasta, Crocodile's hook latches onto Vivi, pulling her away. Luffy, in a split-second decision, grabs onto Vivi to switch places with her, and follows the hook back to Crocodile. Before engaging with the man, though, Luffy orders the others to head straight to Alabasta without him, and to get Vivi home. Finally, with one last promise to meet in Alabasta, Luffy engages Crocodile and Miss All Sunday. Luffy then addresses how kind Vivi is in her selflessness and entirety to protect her entire kingdom and solve the conflict without bloodshed. Crocodile says how hers is a foolish belief and asks if Luffy agrees with him. He does. However, Luffy claims that as long as Crocodile lives, Vivi will suffer, and as her friend, Luffy would stop him here. Crocodile claims that this makes Luffy an even bigger fool for becoming intimate with others, and as such he will die for it. After a taunt towards Crocodile, Miss All Sunday laughs and Crocodile asks if he should kill her too, calling her by her real name Nico Robin. Robin then tells him to do as he wishes, even though he has broken his promise to never call her by that name. She then leaves, claiming to go to Alabasta. His patience thinning, Crocodile places down a sand timer with a limit of 3 minutes, saying that he only has that much time to play with Luffy. Luffy claims that it is fine with him and starts his offense with his Gomu Gomu no pistol attack. Crocodile evades by predictably evaporating into sand. Crocodile lunges forward with his hook, when Luffy narrowly ducks the attack. Luffy's next attack to Crocodile's back, Gomu Gomu no stamp, is also thwarted as Crocodile's Suna Suna no Mai's abilities, which seem to be impervious to physical attack. This is shown again by a futile Gomu Gomu no Gatling gun, each attack passing through him, a Gomu Gomu no bazooka blasting sand everywhere, and an axe kick that does no damage. However, as Crocodile continues to try and explain to Luffy why he will never win, Luffy cuts him off by clocking his face with a haymaker that, although doing no physical damage, shuts Crocodile up and enrages him. Before the 3 minutes are up, Crocodile decides he is done playing with Luffy, even though Luffy says to have been fighting seriously the whole time. He then shows off his first impressive attack, Desert Spada Desert Sword, in Italian. It sends a blade of sand towards Luffy that he once again narrowly dodges. Crocodile compliments Luffy on his quick reflexes and claims that had it hit him, he would have certainly died. Crocodile finally explains to Luffy why he will never win. Unlike Luffy, Crocodile trained his devil fruit powers to the point of mastering them. He claims that any devil fruit power can be powerful in a fight as long as someone knows how to use them properly. Crocodile says to Luffy that if he has proper training, his skills can be as formidable as any, but claims that Luffy's not there yet, just like all the other fools who waste time obsessing over their abilities. Crocodile attacks again instantly afterwards with Desert Girasol Desert Sunflower, creating a large pit of quicksand where Luffy was standing. He escapes, however, with another bazooka. This is when Crocodile seems to get deadly serious. As Luffy futilely continues to attack him, Crocodile uses Barchan, which completely dehydrates Luffy's right arm. In a comedic fashion, Luffy remembers the water from Yuba and drinks from it, restoring his arm quickly. Luffy then attacks in a quite familiar fashion to the former king of Drum Kingdom Wapol by using Gomu Gomu no Baku Baku to chomp off the top part of Crocodile. Crocodile dodges but is infuriated by Luffy's attack. The 3 minutes from the sand timer have run out as well. Crocodile prepares his last attack, Sable's Sandstorm, to finish Luffy. However, it seems as if it was not actually intended for Luffy but for Yuba to the south, for the wind blows from north to south. Luffy, enraged at Crocodile's cruelty, asks why. Luffy, for whatever reason, thinks talking Crocodile and the sandstorm down will make it go away. Crocodile impales Luffy with his hook right in the middle of his ranting. Water has reached Yuba and Toto is relieved. Another sandstorm is caused by Crocodile. Meanwhile, Crocodile pierces Luffy in his stomach and tells him he failed. Luffy is bleeding some water caused by the one he drank earlier to rehydrate his arm. Luffy grabs his arm heavily and Crocodile is surprised he is still alive. He throws Luffy into the quicksand and heads to Alabasta. The rest of the Straw Hats are riding on Hasami. Usopp is telling Chopper one of his stories and Zoro is working out by using Matsuge as a dumbbell. Zoro and Sanji argue with each other because Sanji thinks Zoro is scared. Nami hits them and says it's not the time to fool around. Vivi believes in Luffy and says he will meet them in Alabasta. She was the one who was worried the most. Nami bonks her on the head and says she worries about the rebellion. Smoker orders Tashigi to go to Alabasta. She has to decide whether to pursue the Straw Hats or support the Royal Army while Smoker goes out to sea. Smoker says he will accept responsibility for whatever choice she makes. Nami and the others have to cross a wide river if they want to make it to Alabasta. Hasami cannot cross the ocean, so they decide to make him speed up enough to run on the water. Nami motivates Hasami by using her dancing outfit to make him run across the ocean since Hasami likes dancer girls. They reach 3/4 across the ocean when Hasami sinks down into the sea. They swim back up and they are attacked by a sea monster, who is quickly defeated by the Kung Fu Dogongs. The Kung Fu Dogongs reply that they would never disobey their master's will, Luffy. They reach shore and see something coming after them in the distance. It is revealed to be Karoo and the Super Spot Build Duck troops. Luffy is stuck in the middle of the quicksand and tries to struggle out, but is being covered in the sand. Nico Robin saves him by using her Hana Hana no My powers and asks him about the will of the D, also having retrieved Luffy's hat. Pell arrives, still injured, and asks Nico Robin what she did to Vivi. She replies that Luffy saved her and that she is safe, telling Pell to aid Luffy. While she leaves, Luffy grabs onto Pell while yelling for meat. Back in Alabasta, the royal guards are preparing for battle. The king is shown to have been kidnapped by Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas, as he expresses not wanting Chaka and Koza to fight. Igaram is shown to be still alive. Luffy is with Pell, and he continues to tell Pell that he needs meat. Since Luffy is badly injured from his last encounter with Crocodile, Pell tells him that he does not need food, he needs a doctor right away. But Luffy pulls his clothing and tells him that he will make Crocodile pay for what he did to Vivi and Toto. Meanwhile, the rebel army is still on their way to Alabasta to attack the royal army. The elite members of Baroque Works wait for Vivi and the rest of the Straw Hat Pirates to show up. Unexpectedly, Mr. Four spots them approaching Alabasta on ducks, who are part of the Super Spot Build Duck troops or Hakuichi. Vivi and the Straw Hats are all wearing similar cloaks, so it is difficult for the Baroque Works members to spot which one is Vivi. Vivi and the Straw Hats split up in different directions, which forces the Baroque Works members to split up as well. After everyone is successfully broken into groups, the people on the ducks reveal who they are, but Princess Vivi is not in any of the groups. She did not run off with everyone else. Vivi and Karoo stand outside of Alabasta City in order to stop the rebel army and the royal army from fighting with each other. Koza sees someone in front of the city but thinks he is hallucinating. Then a cannon was shot prematurely by a royal army guard, who is actually a member of the Baroque Works team. Vivi and Karoo are still standing but cannot see what is in front of them because of all the dust. Vivi shouts to Koza, yelling leader a name Koza had since they were kids. Koza hears it but still thinks he is imagining things during the commotion. Vivi is knocked over and sees that there are camels coming her way. Karoo acts quickly and covers her with his body, and instead of her getting trampled, he got trampled. Vivi gets up and sees what he did and begins to cry and tells Karoo that she will stop it no matter what. Usopp appears on a horse, but it is actually Mr. 2. Vivi notices that it isn't actually Usopp because he calls Karoo. That bird Vivi does not believe that the real Usopp would call Karoo that after as much as they had been through on Little Garden. She then tells the fake Usopp to prove himself with the bandage that the crew had wrapped around their arms in previous episodes. The scene then goes to Sanji telling the real Usopp and Matsuge to wake up because they had been beaten up and knocked out. It goes to a flashback of how they set up the bandages to identify the real members of their team. Mr. 2 reveals that he isn't really Usopp, but that Crocodile told the elite members of Baroque Works that all the Straw Hat Pirates had bandages on their arms. Sanji realizes that Vivi is in trouble and that Mr. 2 had went after her. He tells Usopp to go and help Chopper at the southeast gate, But Sanji is caught in between a fight with the royal army and rebel army. He tells both sides that he is not with either side and beats up both sides to get to Princess Vivi, telling both groups that he only fights for the ladies. Chopper is caught in a fight with the team of Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. 4. Mr. 2 attempts to kill Vivi, but Karoo gets up in time to get her on his back and run away, although he is not in a good condition to run fast. Karoo runs up a cliff and is unable to reach the top, which is only a step away. But he remembers when Luffy told him that Vivi is the Straw Hat's friend, and he flaps his wings and reaches the top, although Mr. 2 begins to run up the cliff too. Karoo gets hit with a stray bullet from the fighting and is no longer able to run. After falling, Karoo tells Vivi to run by signaling with his wing because Mr. 2 is getting closer. Out of nowhere, 2 other members of the duck troops show up and Sanji is with them. Sanji is left to fight Mr. 2, and the 2 members of the duck troops take care of the injured Karoo. Zoro and Nami are left with Mr. 1 and Miss Doublefinger. Nami and the ducks cheer Zoro on because they believe he is going to fight the Baroque Works members. But they walk past Zoro and go straight for Nami as they believe that the weakest opponent should be taken out first. Nami tries to talk her way out of it but realizes that they will not back down, so she runs away. Usopp finds Chopper laying on the ground and wakes him up. Chopper tells Usopp that Miss Merry Christmas ate the mole fruit, so she is able to go underground and that Mr. 4 is very strong. Usopp and Chopper are left to dodge the bombs that Mr. 4 continues to hit towards them. Chopper is able to move Usopp out of the way from the exploding baseballs. Usopp disappears inside of Miss Merry Christmas moleholes and emerges to hit Mr. 4 over the head with a fake 5-ton hammer. Usopp begins to play whack-a-mole with Miss Merry Christmas. Usopp and Chopper continue to fight the pair as Vivi is still running to try and stop the rebellion. Miss Merry Christmas tries to attack Usopp from underground. Chopper gets hit by Mr. 4 because he was paying too much attention to Usopp and Miss Merry Christmas battle. Chopper finds a way to defeat Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas using Mr. 4's dog lasso. Miss Merry Christmas has informed Usopp that Luffy is dead. While she and Mr. 4 are glad that Luffy is gone, Usopp refuses to accept it. The mole-like woman swings Usopp along the ground and Mr. 4 takes his hit. Even so, Usopp is still standing and believes Luffy is still alive. Before Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas continue, Usopp obstructs their vision with smoke, then Chopper tricks Mr. 4 into hitting his partner. Usopp then slingshots a hammer right into the giant Baroque Works agent from Chopper's horns. One of Mr. 4's baseballs then puts the Baroque Works pair out. In the city, the fighting worsens and Koza is feeling unfazed by the bullet he took in Nanohana. He then plans to force Cobra to surrender. Vivi races to warn her father, but if she can't reach him, wishes to speak with Chaka. Meanwhile, Mr. 2 is fighting Sanji in the streets. He then attempts to distract Sanji with a swan ballet. Much of their attacks barely affect one another. Bon Clay uses his clone powers to rearrange his own face, but Sanji dislikes it. He then tries to use Usopp's face, but the cook doesn't fall for it. Bon Clay believes his soul is refined. He then shifts his face into Nami's rapidly, which catches Sanji's attention. Vivi arrives at the palace to stop Chaka's fighting. She then wants the palace destroyed. Chaka shakes for a moment, but then accepts her orders. The battle between Mr. 2 and Sanji continues forward, with Sanji appearing to be outmatched after being hoodwinked by Bon Curry transforming continuously into Nami. Eventually, with determination, Sanji is able to see that Bon Curry has to become himself to be able to perform his ballet. Meanwhile, at the palace, Vivi is determined to ensure that the palace is blown up in order to get the attention of the rebels. Chaka has been convinced and Vivi remembers her time with the crew. Back within Chopper's care, Usopp is badly hurt and believed to be dying when Chopper admits he hid the manju bun so that Usopp couldn't eat it, and now he wants to share half with Usopp. However, this reinvigorates Usopp, who is hungry and determined to fight for the entire manju bun, wide awake and just fine after the battle, punching Chopper away. The scene cuts back to a panicking Zoro, angry at Nami for not hiding when he warned her to because Mr. 1 and his partner have determined to kill Nami first because the weakest is easier to beat. Here we learn the story of how Zoro was first faced with Mr. 1 and invited to join Baroque Works, as well as learn about Mr. 1 and his blade fruit abilities that allow him to turn his entire body into blades. Vivi cannot believe that Luffy is dead. Crocodile proceeds to tell her that Luffy would have still been alive had he not gotten involved with her. Vivi refuses to believe this and demands that Crocodile tell her where Luffy is. Meanwhile, the battle between the rebels and the royal army is still going on. Nami remarks that Vivi's plan to stop the rebel army at the entrance must have failed. She wonders if Vivi and the others are all right as they are all fighting while she is running and hiding. She thinks back to the day where she asks Usopp to make her a weapon so she can be strong enough not to endanger the others. Being a couple of ordinary humans with no special abilities, she says she knows that Usopp can empathize with her. Usopp agrees to make her weapon. Miss Doublefinger finds Nami while she is hiding and stabs her shoulder using her Tagi no Mai abilities, which allows her to grow spikes on any part of her body. Nami takes out her climb attack and decides to fight her as she recalls Usopp telling her the features of her new weapon that has elemental powers. She tries her first move, Fine Tempo, which made doves appear. She is disappointed as this attack is nothing more than a party trick. She remains optimistic, thinking that at least the move has caught the enemy off guard. She tries her second move, Cloudy Tempo, which causes flowers to spout when a button is pushed. Miss Doublefinger, seeing Nami's weak attempts to attack her, feels sorry for her but proceeds to attack her with her spikes. Nami barely dodges her but is determined to fight back. She drops her climb attack, but seeing no threat from Nami's weapon, Miss Doublefinger gives it back to her. Nami launches her third move, Thunder Tempo, where a boxing glove springs from the weapon. Miss Doublefinger loses patience and attacks Nami, which she dodges. She hides and continues to read the climb attack instructions, desperate to find a move that can damage her enemy. She finds battle configurations at the back of the instructions. She discovers each of the 3 batons of her weapon have special qualities. The first can create hot air, emitting a hot ball. The second can create cool air, emitting a cool ball, and the third can create electricity, emitting a thunderball. She tests this out, but Usopp's instructions state that these features have not yet been perfected but can be used at parties. Miss Doublefinger proceeds to attack Nami again and she runs away. Nami is stabbed on her calf and she falls down. Just as Miss Doublefinger is about to give the finishing blow, Nami swings her climb attack and she unintentionally uses the Cyclone Tempo, the effect of which is like a boomerang. As she is studying her weapon, Nami has her back turned against her enemy, which insults Miss Doublefinger and causes her to attack Nami. Nami is seemingly skewered by the attack, but a dove flies towards the skewered Nami, revealing that it was just an illusion. Nami explains that she used the Mirage Tempo, where her climb attack allowed her to create a mirage of herself. Finally getting a better understanding of how the climb attack works, Nami tells Miss Doublefinger that she is now ready to actually fight. Meanwhile, Crocodile has taken Cobra and nails him to the palace walls. Vivi and Chaka are unable to do anything. He tells them that he has no intention of keeping Cobra or Vivi alive and will kill them after he gets what he has really been after since the very beginning. He then asks Cobra where the Pluton is. Cobra is shocked by this question and demands to know how Crocodile knows this name. Crocodile reveals his true motive and explains the details of Pluton. After hearing of this for the first time, King Cobra informs Crocodile that even the existence of the weapon is in doubt. Crocodile affirms that even he cannot confirm its existence but reveals his backup plan. Crocodile informs Vivi and Cobra that he has planted a bomb to explode in the palace square at 4:30, 1.5 hours after the rebel army and the royal guard clash at the square. Crocodile then instead asks for the location of the poneglyph from Cobra, who agrees to go with Crocodile and take him to the location. Enraged, Chaka prepares to attack Crocodile. Elsewhere, Nami attempts to further understand the climb attack and reads Usopp's instructions on the special Tornado Tempo attack as Miss Doublefinger continues her attack. Nami considers the options ahead of her and uses many of the features of the climb attack, to the amusement of Miss Doublefinger, who continues to attack Nami as she tries to buy more time for her strategy. Outside Alabasta, Sanji meets up with Usopp and Chopper and returns Usopp's goggles that he took from Mr. 2. They all meet up with Matsuja and decide to continue towards the palace to help Vivi. At the Alabasta North Block, Miss Doublefinger continues to attack Nami, leaving her injured and bleeding, but Nami buys enough time to create a thundercloud and launches an electric shock on Miss Doublefinger. Angry and injured, Miss Doublefinger again attacks Nami, at which point Nami reveals her Mirage Tempo ability, which manipulates the humidity of the atmosphere to create mirages. This allows Nami to go behind Miss Doublefinger and remember the information from Usopp that warns her that Tornado Tempo is a one-time attack only. Nami remembers the dangers the crew has been through and resolves to continue fighting for Vivi's sake, but her injured leg is causing her to falter. Seeing an opportunity, Miss Doublefinger attacks with her sea urchin stinger, and Nami stops the attack with her leg. Nami launches the Tornado Tempo, which initially does not do anything, but then wraps around Miss Doublefinger and launches her through buildings, ending the fight in Nami's victory. In another location, Zoro and Mr. 1 are clashing, and Zoro recalls that Mr. 1 used to be a famous assassin in West Blue. They clash and Zoro realizes that Mr. 1's body is as hard as steel, exclaiming that he can not yet cut steel but has been waiting for an opportunity like this to grow stronger. Roronoa Zoro is struggling in his fight against Mr. 1 due to his inability to cut through steel. After a prolonged battle where Zoro displays a wide variety of techniques against the assassin, he thinks back to when his old mentor said that a swordsman who can cut nothing can cut anything including steel. Still not understanding this idea, he is forced onto the defensive from Mr. 1's attacks, which climax with the latter creating multiple spinning blades on his arms, landing a direct hit on the swordsman. Unable to defend against it, Zoro falls against a pillar and Mr. One delivers what he believes is the final blow that further wounds Zoro and destroys the pillar he was leaning on, causing the pillar and arch fall on top of him. Mr. One begins to walk away but quickly notices that Zoro has gotten up once again. Wondering out loud how Zoro was able to dodge all the flying debris, the swordsman claims that he did not dodge at all, and that he just was able to sense where no debris was falling and went there. Further elaborating to himself, Zoro notes that he can sense the rhythm of all things around him and can tell where his sword is, turning over a stone to find it. Picking it up, he then turns and slashes at some leaves on a tree without cutting them before then cutting a rock clean in half. Finally coming to an understanding of his teacher's words, he then attacks Mr. One with only one sword. Zoro then proves he is finally able to cut Mr. One and defeats him, collapsing to the ground and wonders if everyone else is okay. The two Megari guards charge into the palace to attempt to save Cobra. Cobra orders them not to attack as they will just be throwing away their lives. The guards tell their king that they have sworn to protect him even to the death. Acknowledging their reputation, Crocodile offers to spare their lives if they leave and go home, to which they refuse. However, before they can attack, their bodies show signs changes and bruising. Chaka explains that to temporarily increase their power they must have drank hero water which grants incredible strength but kills the host and that they are good as dead. They proceed to attack Crocodile but he turns himself into sand and dodges their attack. Crocodile states that he won't bother to fight them since they're going to die anyway. Shortly thereafter, the two Megiri guards all collapse and die. Crocodile laughs at this which angers Chaka, causing him to attack Crocodile. Chaka reveals his Inu no Mai model Jackal Devil Fruit power. He is, however, unable to land a blow due to Crocodile's powers. Meanwhile, after his fight, Zoro collapses due to loss of blood. As he lies barely conscious, he wonders how the others are doing and that they better not be dead. With this, he thinks about Usopp. In another part of the city, Sanji, along with Chopper and Usopp, who are being carried by Matsuge, are running towards the palace. Usopp is in tears, remembering that Miss Merry Christmas told them that Luffy is dead. Chopper tearfully tells him that it might not be true, while Sanji, with a smile on his face, asks them if they truly believed that. They answer that they believe Luffy is still alive. Cutting back to Zoro, he is now thinking about Nami and wondering if she managed to escape. Nami is then shown somewhere in Alabasta North Block, detangling her Climax final attack from Miss Doublefinger's body. She then proceeds to go to the palace. Zoro then wonders if Vivi is okay. Vivi is then shown calling out Chaka's name with Chaka lying down on the ground, bloodied. A figure then approaches Vivi and calls out her name. Scene cuts to the palace square, showing that there are 25 minutes left until the time of the explosion Crocodile has planned. The figure is revealed to be Koza, who is in disbelief on what he has seen before him. He sees the two Megiri guards dead on the ground, Chaka bloodied and lifeless, Cobra nailed to the palace walls, and that Crocodile, the supposed country's hero, is behind it all. Crocodile is amused at the turn of events where the country is in the midst of war and the leaders of both sides are not on the battlefield but are standing at his feet. Miss All Sunday ridicules Koza's confusion and offers to help him understand. She tells him to relax and open his mind and think of the worst possible scenario. Koza realizes that his father was right about Cobra and that he was wrong to doubt him. Koza demands to know who was responsible for the drought ravaging Arabasta, where Crocodile answers that for the past 2 years, every single malicious thing Koza attributed to Cobra was in fact perpetuated by him and his company, Baroque Works. Crocodile continues to taunt Koza, but Cobra calls his attention and demands that he listen. Cobra asks him to save as many citizens as he can. Chaka tells him about the bomb in the palace square and to hurry. Crocodile, seeing that Chaka is still alive, proceeds to strike him once more, seemingly killing him. Koza runs towards the palace square, but Vivi chases him and pulls him to the ground. She implores him to listen and think things through. She explains that if they tell everyone that the palace square will explode, everyone will panic, which will add more chaos to the battle, and that even if they stop the bomb, it doesn't really stop the fighting and people are still going to die. She tells him that they have to stop the rebellion instead, and that he is the only one who can do it. Hearing their plans, Crocodile tries to stop them and attempts to strike Vivi, but is blocked by Chaka, giving them time to get away. Vivi reaches the royal army and commands them to surrender immediately. Koza then comes out and tells the royal army that they no longer need to fight, and that they just want to end the conflict. As the rebel army approaches the palace square, they see the royal army waving white flags of surrender. They also see their leader, Koza, waving a white flag. He tells them to quiet their anger and lower their weapons. He announces that the battle is over. However, he is shot multiple times by what looks like a soldier of the royal army but is actually a Baroque Works agent who has infiltrated their ranks. Vivi screams in horror. Koza is shot by Baroque Works agents that have infiltrated the royal guards, and as he collapses, he tries to tell the rebel army not to fight. The royal guards confront the Solider that shot Koza, but as Koza once again tries to talk to the rebel army, A sandstorm blows through the palace, obscuring the battlefield and allowing Baroque Works agents that have infiltrated both sides to fire more shots towards the rebel army and royal guard, triggering a clash between them. Vivi and Koza try to stop the fighting, but their voices are drowned out by the fighting occurring in the palace square. In the palace, Chaka succumbs to his wounds and collapses, and King Cobra tells Vivi to run away, which she refuses, pointing out that Crocodile was the cause of the sandstorm and that she still wanted to stop the bomb that is set to explode in 15 minutes, to at least save some of the fighters in the palace square. Crocodile then grabs Vivi by the neck, telling her she was too weak to have those zealous ideals, and she reminds him that as the princess of the country, she will never yield to him or give up. Crocodile reminds Vivi that the rebel army reinforcements are still arriving and will walk into the range of the blast, and then hangs her over the cliff by the neck as he lambastes her for her decision not to tell the soldiers about the bomb, pointing out that despite the panic, at least a few thousand would have survived. Crocodile notes that Vivi had been working as a spy in Baroque work for 2 years and then drops her off the cliff. In the distance, Luffy arrives flying on Pell to Crocodile's shock. They catch Vivi before she hits the ground, and she tells them about the bomb that is set to explode. At the palace square, Luffy and Vivi meet up with Chopper, Sanji, and Usopp, as well as Zoro, who had been carrying Nami. Luffy apologizes for losing to Crocodile and promises not to lose again, and tells them to take care of the other matters as he stretches up towards the palace to fight Crocodile. Crocodile attempts to dodge Luffy's hit, only to be punched in the face, making him bleed slightly. Before he could recover, Luffy attacks him again, and Crocodile begins to realize that Luffy has uncovered his weakness. Luffy explains that he found his weakness after their first fight, when the water he got from Yuba spilled on Crocodile, preventing him from turning to sand. With Crocodile lying on the ground, Luffy demands that he get up and fight. Crocodile laughs at this statement. Meanwhile, Vivi and the rest of the Straw Hats are in the palace square. Vivi explains that according to Crocodile, within 10 minutes, a huge cannon will be fired, and once the cannon is fired, no one within a 5-kilometer radius will survive, wiping out both the rebel and royal army forces. Zoro tells them that they need to find the cannon and stop the cannoneer from shooting. Before they can go ahead and look for the cannon, some Baroque Works billions find Vivi and try to bring her to Crocodile for a promotion. Sanji and Zoro volunteer to stay behind to deal with the agents while the others go ahead and split up to look for the cannon. Crocodile is still laughing at Luffy's statement, telling him that it will not be so easy to defeat him, since he is one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Luffy is unimpressed and says that if Crocodile is one of the 7 warlords, then he is the 8th warlord. Cobra cannot believe what he is hearing and is impressed by Luffy's confidence. He asks who Luffy is, and Miss All Sunday tells him that he is the one responsible for bringing Vivi back to Arabasta. Even though Luffy has figured out how to land a punch on Crocodile, the warlord is still confident, stating that even though Luffy can hit him, he can still absorb any fluid in Luffy's body. He proceeds to dehydrate Luffy's arm, which Luffy counters by drinking more water. The two continue their battle, and Luffy reveals that he was planning to throw the barrel of water he was carrying to douse Crocodile in water. Crocodile predicts this move and counters it by conjuring a twister of sand, sending both Luffy and the barrel flying away. Luffy barely catches the barrel of water. Crocodile laughs at Luffy, telling him that this battle is no different from the first time they fought. Luffy proceeds to drink the whole barrel of water he was carrying and dubs himself as Water Luffy, showing a bloated stomach full of water, which shocks both Crocodile and Cobra and amuses Miss All Sunday. Attacks Luffy, but Luffy squirts out water from his mouth and douses Crocodile with water, just as he planned, making the warlord susceptible to Luffy's physical attacks. Luffy uses his Gomu Gomu no Bazooka technique and hits Crocodile directly to his stomach, which sends him crashing. Crocodile is lying on the ground, not moving. Miss All Sunday removes the stakes, impaling Cobra, and demands that he show her the way to the poneglyph. Cobra asks what she wants with it, but she subdues him and reiterates her demand. Crocodile gets up and calls Miss All Sunday by her real name, Nico Robin, telling her that she should get going now to the poneglyphs. As Nico Robin and the king leave, Crocodile uses his ground secco technique, which dehydrates all of their surroundings, turning it to a desert wasteland. Luffy shoots water at Crocodile, which he simply absorbs with his hand. He continues to suck the moisture out of ground, the effects of which are felt throughout the palace. With 8 minutes left until the explosion, Vivi, Pell, and the rest of the Straw Hats scramble to find the cannon. Meanwhile, Cobra asks if Nico Robin is truly Miss All Sunday's name. He remembers that the name was known throughout the world 20 years ago. On their way to the poneglyphs, they encounter Tasidi and a bunch of Marines. Tashigi refuses to let them pass, but Robin uses her abilities to incapacitate some of her men. Seeing the ability, a Marine recognizes who she is and tells Tashigi that 20 years ago, when she was 8 years old, Robin earned a bounty of belly 79 million for sinking 6 Marine ships, classifying her as a first-degree risk. After the incident, she was said to have vanished and never heard from again. After hearing about her reputation, Tashigi commands her men to go to the palace square to stop the explosion, deeming it useless for so many men to fight against someone with her power. She stays behind, deciding to fight her, but Robin uses her ability against Tashigi and easily defeats her. In the palace, the entire lawn has turned to sand. Crocodile is able to sneak up on Luffy and grab him by the neck. Luffy spits water at Crocodile but misses, and he proceeds to absorb all of the water in Luffy's body, dehydrating him. Luffy's signature straw hat is shown to be blown away by the wind. While still holding Luffy by the neck, Crocodile declares that Luffy has lost to him for the second time. Luffy's body water got dried out by Crocodile, leaving Luffy close to death. However, the water he had shot out at Crocodile came falling and landed on him, which brought him back to life. After Luffy recovered, he went searching for Crocodile. Nico, Robin, and King Cobra, on the way to the royal tomb, encountered the Marines and were ordered to surrender. However, she overcame them easily. Sometime afterwards, Crocodile came by and laughed at them for being easily overcome. Meanwhile, the remainder of the Straw Hat crew, Vivi and Pell, are still in search of the hidden cannon, and time is counting down fast. Luffy, on the pursuit of Crocodile, came by Tashigi and requested which route Crocodile took. After some contemplation, she showed Luffy the way Crocodile went and scolded herself after he took off. Upon nearing the tomb, Luffy began to bleed and fell to the ground sleeping. Meanwhile, with the help of Cobra, Nico Robin found the poneglyph and started reading it. Crocodile, at this point, had reached the location of the poneglyph as well. The Straw Hats are still in search of the bomb. Upon encountering the poneglyph, Nico Robin read and inquired from Cobra if there were any more poneglyphs in the country, and Cobra asked if she was disappointed by the one they found. Crocodile finds them and tells Nico Robin to read what is written on the poneglyph. She began reading, however, she was simply reading the history of Arabasta to him. On hearing that, Crocodile got very upset and asked if the poneglyph revealed the location of the ancient weapon Pluton. Nico Robin answered him saying nothing of the name Pluton is mentioned in this poneglyph. Crocodile then told her that she has been useful for the 4 years they had been together operating Baroque works. However, she would have to die since she broke her promise of not giving him the location of Pluton after reading the poneglyph. Nico Robin tried to kill him but failed. At that point, Cobra had initiated a timer that would destroy the underground tomb, stating that both Crocodile and Nico Robin would die along with him, because he would never let Crocodile have the country of sand. During the search of the bomb, Vivi ends up with a skinned knee when one of her platform sandal straps disintegrates from all the abusive running that has worn it apart. She got a revelation of the possible location of the bomb and had Usopp summon the remainder of the Straw Hats when they crossed the streets. Luffy is finally awake from his nap and went running searching for Crocodile. Crocodile informs Cobra that his plan to bury all 3 of them together is futile because he is able to turn the bedrock of the tomb to sand and make his escape. Vivi and Usopp are together, and Vivi has an idea of where the cannon is hidden. Usopp had signaled the other member of the Straw Hat Pirates in the previous episode with one of his slingshot bombs, but billions from the Baroque works had found them instead. To distract them, Usopp uses a chalkboard and drags his nails down it to make a loud noise. He grabs Vivi and runs away. Meanwhile, Luffy finds where Crocodile, Nefertari Cobra, and the critically injured Nico Robin is. Crocodile is upset that Luffy is still alive, no matter how many times he defeats Luffy. Cobra is baffled by who the strange boy is Luffy. Luffy demands that Crocodile give him back Vivi's country so Vivi can smile again. Luffy punches Crocodile twice, and Crocodile is confused about how he is doing it without water. Luffy was using his blood to touch Crocodile, preventing Crocodile from using his powers from the devil fruit. Crocodile takes off a covering from his hook that reveals he has poison in it. Zoro runs to where the smoke bomb was shot by Usopp, but finds a group of Marines who were with Tashigi. They berate him for having a poor sense of direction and then give him orders on where to go to find the center of the city of Alabasta. Vivi and Usopp are still running with Baroque Works members chasing them. Tashigi and a few Marine members attack the men chasing Vivi and Usopp. Nami and Tony Chopper find Vivi and Usopp with 2 minutes left before the bomb kills the Royal Army and Rebel Army and everyone in the center of Alabasta. Pell is shot from the sky by a mysterious frog woman hidden in the clock tower who is later revealed to be working for Baroque Works. Luffy and Crocodile continue their fight, and Luffy dodges Crocodile's attacks made by his hook. Cobra notices that Crocodile is struggling in the fight. Vivi is looking for Pell, thinking he's their only hope to reach the cannon in time. Sanji and Zoro are in the clock tower. With 30 seconds left, the clock tower opens with Mr. Seven and Miss Father's Day inside laughing. Tashigi attacks the men from Baroque Works and tells the Marines they should not hesitate and they should immediately know who their enemy is. Seven and Miss Father's Day speak with joy about firing the bomb because that is their last mission from the boss and believe that they will get a promotion. Luffy continues to fight Crocodile, but the poison from Crocodile's hook has entered a wound on Luffy's shoulder, making his body numb. Crocodile tells Luffy that he should have forgotten about Vivi because he would have avoided such situations he has been in. Meanwhile, Nami came up with an idea to stop the bomb with the weapon Usopp created for her. The plan is aiding Vivi up the clock tower, starting by having her sitting on Chopper, who is standing on Usopp's shoulders. Nami then threw her climb attack between his legs using Cyclone Tempo, making him jump high enough for Chopper to jump towards Sanji, who kicks them towards Zoro. While midair and only 7 seconds left, Mr. 7 and Miss Father's Day sees them coming and shoots at them, but only hits Zoro, who managed to push Chopper and Vivi out of the way and high enough for Chopper to throw Vivi towards the clock tower. With 5 seconds left, Vivi is able to cut the fuse that will activate the bomb. Meanwhile, Crocodile laughs at how pathetic Luffy looks with the poison running through his body. Crocodile tells Nefertari Cobra that he was well prepared for this big event, and the time bomb would do plenty of damage from where it is placed, and it would only delay the bomb for a couple of seconds or so. Vivi finds out that the cannon is also a time bomb, and cries with frustration because she sees that Crocodile is mocking at her. He had told her before that she will not succeed in saving her beloved country, no matter what she does. Pell shows up, and while Vivi is trying to tell him about the time bomb, he speaks of how the clock tower brings back so many memories from Vivi's childhood. In Pell's flashback, he tells Vivi that he is a guard that is there to protect his country. He takes the time bomb and flies up towards the sky. As he is flying away, in the background his voice is heard and he says, "I am Arabasta's guardian deity, the Falcon, and I am sworn to destroy the enemies of the royal family." When the sentence is finished, the time bomb blows up. Vivi is distraught after Pell's sacrifice. Even though he got the bomb away, the shock wave still knocks people down and damages buildings. None of the straw hats on the surface can believe it, either. Even worse, the residents of Alabasta just get up and start killing each other again. Tashigi is held back by Marines on the scene from interfering. Having lost all hope, Vivi just starts repeatedly screaming, "Please stop fighting," from the bell tower. Only the straw hats can hear her. Nami, sensing Vivi's pain and frustration, tells the others to go stop the civil war at all costs. Under Alabasta, the tomb is crumbling. King Cobra and Miss All Sunday are both out, as well as apparently Luffy. Crocodile revels in what seems to be his ultimate victory. However, Luffy gets up, much to Crocodile's shock. Cobra comes to, as well as Luffy declares he cannot be beaten. Crocodile tries to get him with his hook again, but Luffy kicks it away so hard the hook breaks off. Luffy starts beating on Crocodile and is making headway, throwing him through the ruins. Crocodile has no idea why the scorpion venom is not working on Luffy. He deploys a knife from the stub of his hook, but when he lunges at Luffy, he gets kicked up into the ruins' rafters. Tired of these games, he uses Sable's Pasado to blow away more ruins. Luffy inflates his body, then twists and blows, rifling up toward Crocodile. Luffy begins Gomu Gomu no Storm, using his Gatling attack while rocketing toward his enemy. Crocodile counters with Desert La Spada, forming a giant set of claw blades, but they are neutralized by Luffy's blood-soaked fists. Crocodile gets pummeled against the ceiling of the ruins. To Cobra's shock, Crocodile is eventually driven through several feet of bedrock and hundreds of feet into the air above Alabasta. The Straw Hats and Vivi see Crocodile's unconscious body tumble through the air, and Vivi recalls reading about the worsening situation in Arabasta during their journey. Although the Straw Hats rejoice in Luffy's victory initially, the civil war continues to rage around them. As Vivi continues to beg them to stop, rain suddenly begins to fall. As they feel Alabasta's first rainfall in 3 years, the people finally stop fighting. Eventually, the dust clears, and the people finally hear Vivi's pleas to stop fighting. The people drop their partisans when they realize their princess is alive and well. As Crocodile collides with the street, Luffy hits the bottom of the tomb next to King Cobra. Vivi tells her people the nightmare is finally over and Cobra thanks Luffy. Although the people's anger is quelled, they don't initially believe Vivi's claim that the nightmare is over. The people are still angry that King Cobra apparently attacked Nanohana. At this point, Shaka orders the royal army of Arabasta to stand down. Also, Igaram appears, to Vivi's relief as she descends the clock tower. He presents Kappa, the kid who was allegedly hurt by the royal army in Nanohana. Kappa testifies to the treachery of Crocodile and Baroque works, and how Mr. Ubon Kure impersonated King Cobra. The people finally agree to throw their weapons down for good. In the streets, the Straw Hat Pirates are met by King Cobra, who is carrying Luffy, weak but alive. Sanji doesn't know who Cobra is at first, until Vivi runs to him and hugs him. Cobra said Luffy somehow found the strength to carry both of them up to the surface. He also says Luffy got an antidote for Crocodile's poison, though he'll still need to be treated for his injuries. The Straw Hats say they'll make their way to the palace incognito when they're ready, since they're wanted. The people gather around the disgraced Crocodile as the Marines arrive with Tashigi. Tashigi reveals that her men had confiscated Baroque works ships with dance powder, a powder that can induce rain, and linked them to Crocodile. She strips him of his title as Warlord of the Sea and places him under arrest, though he's still unconscious and can't resist anyway. The rest of Baroque works is out of commission except for Mr. 2, who sneaks through Alabasta to get away. Koza tries to reconcile the actions of the rebellion as he digests Crocodile's treachery, but King Cobra tells his people they can get past this ugly moment in their history, and Arabasta can continue to move forward. On the coastline, Hina accuses Smoker of using the dance powder. Smoker says he knows King Cobra was trying to protect his kingdom without using it, and didn't want to ruin that. He asks Hina to take the ship they are aboard, the Baroque Works Rainmaker ship, and Crocodile to headquarters. Tashigi also orders the Marines in her unit to turn a blind eye to the Straw Hats. The wounded are cleared from Alibarna Square, and Koza assures Vivi that he'll be fine. The people of Arabasta rejoice at the return of the rain. That evening, back at the palace, the Straw Hats finally made it back and are now recuperating from their injuries. Vivi is watching the rain in their room when Egaram came in. He eulogizes Pell and honors his bravery in protecting the kingdom. The next day, at the port where the Marines are moored, Tashigi arrives with Crocodile. She reports to Smoker and apologizes for letting Luffy go. Smoker ignores it. Tashigi feels as if she could not figure out what true justice was in the situation and was ashamed that she assisted the Straw Hats in defeating Crocodile. Smoker starts talking about ambition and how some he knows are making names for themselves. Smoker provides no comfort to the conflicted Tashigi, only telling her to get stronger if she feels she is not up to the task. She declares she will, and he tells the other soldiers they can only wish for guts like hers. Marine headquarters places a Den Mushi call in to Smoker, requesting he and Tashigi report in. They have ignored his report and are crediting him and Tashigi with the apprehension of Crocodile with promotions in rank to match. Hina says the world government wants to cover up the Straw Hats' involvement. Unwilling to accept that, Smoker angrily tells the world government what they can do with their promotion. Dr. Ho wonders over Chopper's skill at mixing medicine. As she passes by, Vivi notes that he was trained as a doctor on Drum Island. Dr. Ho notes he did not know about Chopper's techniques despite 40 years of training himself. Chopper goes into his usual routine of responding to praise with insults, but Dr. Ho translates them as appreciation. Vivi cares for Luffy at a nearby bed, with Karu laying at the next bed over. Sanji and Usopp walk through the capital city as it rebuilds, remarking at the people's resilience as they rebuild. Sanji quickly walks away from one area when he recalls that a particular set of holes through a series of buildings was caused by him. Zoro is elsewhere, working on his concentration by balancing boulders on his fists, seeking to be able to call upon his utmost skills at the shortest notice. In the palace library, King Cobra encourages Nami to take as many books as she likes back with her when the Straw Hats depart. Chaka and his guards hold off Marines who are looking for Luffy and Zoro, while Sanji and Usopp, who are not yet wanted, walk by unnoticed. Luffy soon wakes up and is feeling much better. He looks for his hat, then quickly feels hungry, and is conflicted between looking for his hat and finding food. Usopp points out Luffy's straw hat on the next bed over it was found at the ruins by a soldier. Luffy had no idea that he was in bad shape when he was brought to the palace infirmary, and thanks Chopper and Vivi for nursing him back to health. A figure comes in, sensing Luffy's awakening. At first, Zoro thinks it's Igaram cross-dressing, but it's actually his wife Terracotta, the royal chef. Zoro notes how disturbingly similar she looks to Igaram. She is personally overseeing the banquet to thank Luffy for rescuing Vivi and her husband. Having heard of Luffy's legendary appetite, she has brought a large tray of fruit for Luffy to tide him over before dinner. He scarfs the entire tray up in a split second. Terracotta looks forward to the challenge of feeding Luffy. At the banquet that follows, the palace guards stand in disbelief as the Straw Hats gorge themselves, especially Luffy, who has a bad habit of eating food off other people's plates. Sanji is concerned over how fast Chopper is sucking down pasta. Usopp puts the contents of one of his Tabasco no boshi on a rice ball as a trick. Luffy eats it, of course, and spits fire. Vivi just laughs at the spectacle, and soon even the guards can't help but laugh as the banquet gets even more raucous. It eventually involves the nose chopsticks. All the while, Terracotta cooks happily, embracing the challenge. Later on, Cobra invites the Straw Hats to the baths. Eventually, Sanji asks Igaram to show him toward the ladies' side of the bath so he can do some peeping. He gets offended, but Cobra himself points at a wall they can look over, even though his daughter is in there. Nami and Vivi have that side of the bath to themselves, even though it is as spacious and lavish as the men's side. Nami wonders if a ship could carry such a bath. Vivi notes of all the wonderful things they have seen on their voyage together. As they get ready to switch so Nami can wash Vivi, they notice all the men looking over the wall: Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, Chopper, even Cobra and Igaram, only Zoro absent. Nami has a simple solution. She stands, pulling her towel around her, and tells the men they will owe her belly 100,000 each for this. She then unleashes her most diabolical move, Happiness Punch. She opens her towel, baring her entire body to the guys. They are all stunned, getting massive nosebleeds and falling back to their side, Sanji mumbling. With their bath back to themselves, Nami notes the Straw Hats might leave Arabasta that evening. There's no reason for them to stay, and the Marines are probably looking for them by now. This news startles Vivi. On the men's side, Cobra does something unexpected by bowing to the Straw Hats. Igaram is alarmed by his UN kingly display of bowing to another man, but Cobra notes there's no such thing as a naked king. He is thanking them as a resident of Arabasta for saving his kingdom, and as a father for saving his daughter. Nami and Vivi overhear Cobra's gesture. As night falls over the palace, Nami officially suggests to the others that they leave tonight. Zoro and Sanji agree with her reasoning. Luffy wants some more food, but Zoro says they have to leave immediately. Elsewhere in the palace, Shaka and Igaram have received a new bounty poster for Luffy and one for Zoro as well. Luffy's bounty has been raised to Billy 100 million, and Zoro now has a bounty of Billy 60 million. Igaram remarks that Luffy cannot turn back now that he's defeated one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Later that night, Igaram runs to warn the Straw Hats, but they are already gone, only Vivi left in their room. Vivi tells him they've already left. Elsewhere in Arabasta, 2 Marine sergeants appear on a ship. One of them is Django, who has turned traitor on the pirate movement. The other is Full Body, who has apparently gotten new clout among the Marines. They have taken down a pirate ship and are dancing in victory. On the nearby dock, Hina is disappointed that their operation took so long. Another Marine notes that all harbors are blockaded, but the Going Merry has gone missing from Iramalu. She orders the Marines to search all over for their ship. Django and Full Body return to Hina. She orders them to begin patrol for the Straw Hat pirates, to their excitement. The Straw Hats are running across the desert on a group of riding ducks. Luffy is still eating. Sanji shares that he got some recipes and spices from Terracotta so he can make some native dishes in the future. Chopper looks at Nami, who is feeling down right now. Sanji suspects she's thinking about Vivi. Nami says she's down because she's giving up the Bailey 1 billion ransom she originally extorted from Igaram. Everyone is shocked that she's feeling down about giving up the money, as opposed to leaving Vivi behind. Usopp ends up falling off his duck. Igaram wants Vivi to ride to the Straw Hats and warn them about their increased bounties, but Vivi knows Karoo will never be able to catch them by now. Vivi insists they'll be all right and pushes Igaram out of the room so she can sleep. She is due to address the people of Arabasta the next day. Igaram is concerned that she is too calm about it. Before she goes to bed, Vivi notes how quiet it is now that she's away from the Straw Hats. Earlier in the day, the Straw Hats got a call over Den Mushi from somebody named Bon Chan. They recognize it as Bon Kuri. Luffy wonders what he wants. He claims that he's taken their ship to the upper Sandora River, and that they are now friends. Zoro says they have no choice but to go where he took their ship, and keep a watchful eye on if he has any tricks for them. Vivi gets their attention and asks what she should do. She is still uncertain whether to stay or go. Nami says they will get their ship and sail to the eastern harbor. If Vivi is not there by noon, they will consider her to be staying and leave without her. It is at that point that the Straw Hats take their leave. Vivi notes she can leave for the eastern harbor at 8 a.m. and make it on time if she chooses. The question is whether to be a pirate or a princess. She asks Karoo what he would like to do. Bon Kure greets the Straw Hats as they arrive at the Going Merry. Luffy is leery of Bon's help, since he lied earlier about helping them. But there's no longer a point to Bon for them to be enemies since Baroque Works is history. He says he took the Going Merry to keep it from being captured by the Marines, and alerts them that they have blocked all the ports. Luffy accepts him as a friend, but Zoro thinks Bon's just doing it because he's just as trapped by the Marines as they are. He admits that this is the case, and Bon Kure's ship appears shortly thereafter to assist. The Marines and the Straw Hats have begun battle, and the Marines are attempting to sink the Going Merry, leaving the crew in a pinch. Luffy recognized Django and questioned why he was a Marine, with Django answering that he has his own reasons. Sanji, on the other hand, commented that the man next to Django appeared familiar. Full Body commented that Sanji and his crew will meet their doom on that day since he's powered up. Usopp went to the cannon launcher and launched a cannon at Django, which destroyed the ship he was on as well as the ship Full Body was on. Luffy then praised Usopp's marksmanship, saying it was awesome. Bon Kure told them to escape after those 2 ships were destroyed and received word that Hina the Black Cage had arrived. He explained that Black Cage Hina is the Marine headquarters captain that patrolled that area. Bon Kure questioned why the Straw Hats would not escape, and Nami told him about the promise they made with Luffy, adding that it was so they could meet a friend. Cobra and Igaram visit Vivi, and she announced she would like to tell them something very important. With his disguise ability, Bon Kure fooled the Marines into pursuing him, allowing the Straw Hats to escape. Bon Kure recited his Okama-Way poem and prepared to engage the Marines in battle. Upon witnessing what was unfolding between Bon Kure's crew and the Marines, the Straw Hats cried and swore never to forget them. Another crew of Marine ships attacked the Straw Hats again but were overwhelmed. Vivi began her speech, which was secretly about her travel with the Straw Hats. On hearing the speech, Zoro and Sanji told Luffy that they had to leave since it appeared Vivi was not coming. Moreover, they were under attack again by another crew of marine ships. The country's people who came to watch Vivi give her speech realized Igaram's attempt to disguise as Vivi and yelled for him to step down. Vivi made it to the harbor and found the Straw Hat crew waiting as promised. Vivi told them she came to say goodbye and she would be staying behind. She, however, asked, if they ever meet again, would they consider her as part of their family? Luffy was about to give her a verbal answer when Nami shut him up. She told him the Marines have seen Vivi and responding verbally would make them consider her as part of them, thus making her into a criminal. So, to give a silent answer and goodbye, the Straw Hats rose their left arm with the cross mark on it as proof that they consider her one of them. Vivi and Karoo also rose their left arm at the shore, indicating their friendship. Hina explains to Smoker that they sunk Bon Curie's ship and captured his crew, but the Straw Hats managed to run away. Although Hina observes that Smoker seems pleased that they managed to escape, King Cobra continues the speech given to the kingdom started by Vivi. Chaka mourns Pell's death at his grave, though he admits that he cannot accept Pell is really gone. Back at Yuba, Toto continues to laugh since hearing the kingdom-wide speech, as he is one of the few people who know the true extent of the Straw Hats' involvement in saving Arabasta. It then cuts to various people and animals who interacted with the Straw Hats through their journey in the desert. Among them are citizens' reactions and plans for the future. Crocodile's casino will probably be shut down as people do not have time to take care of it, neither would they want to. It is then revealed that Pell survived the blast. The Marines continue to attack the Going Merry and it seems to be sinking. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji decide they've got to fight them when they trip over large metal pipes Usopp kept, which they then decide to throw out. Luffy throws them all off the ship, and they end up striking the marine ships, disabling them. Using this to their advantage, they make a quick escape. After hearing of the escape, Smoker informs Tashigi of the bounties on Luffy and Zoro, informing her of the latter's exploits at Whisky Peak and his victory over Das Bonaz in Arabasta. He assures her they will get their rematch another time as Tashigi vows to defeat Zoro. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats bemoan the loss of Vivi, except Zoro, who says if they miss her so much they may as well have forced her to come along. The others insult him except Luffy, who does not know how to make up a proper insult. Suddenly, the door to the captain's cabin opens, revealing Nico Robin. Everyone who knows who she is panics. Robin says Luffy did something to her and Sanji immediately gets angry at him. Luffy has no idea what she's talking about, but Robin insists that he put her through excruciating treatment, and that he needs to take responsibility by allowing her to become part of their crew. Flashback to the temple collapse, as Luffy lay unconscious. Robin gives King Cobra the antidote to Crocodile's poison, telling him Luffy could survive the collapse due to his rubber body. She admits that she did lie to Crocodile about the poneglyph and never had any intention of handing over a weapon to him. The poneglyph's inscriptions actually are about Pluton, but she told Crocodile that they only list the monarchs of Alabasta. As Cobra administers the medicine, she tells him the truth. All she wants to know is the true history through the Rio poneglyph. Now she's given up. She spent 20 years looking for it, and Arabasta was her last good lead. At that point, she believed there were simply too many enemies in the path to achieving her dream. Luffy then wakes and saves Cobra and Robin, even though she tells him to just leave her to die, but he ignores her resolutely. Why do I have to listen to you? Back in the present, Robin says that she now has nowhere else to go and that Luffy's crime was forcing her to live when she wished to die. Luffy allows her on the crew without another word, shocking the others. He says she is no longer a threat to them. As she allows Luffy and Chopper to play with her powers, Usopp attempts to interrogate her, but fails rather miserably and ends up terrified of her. However, Nico Robin reveals something about her past. She is an archaeologist since the age of 8, but she also did a lot of other jobs, including killing. Nami is bribed by jewels and gems into accepting her, and Sanji was gone from the word go since she's a woman. Meanwhile, Usopp, Luffy, and Chopper are having too much fun playing games with her. The only one who stays suspicious is Zoro, but even he is briefly disarmed by her cheerfulness. As things on the Going Merry get back to as close to normal as they ever are, cut back to Arabasta 1. Last time Pell drops his crutch as he finds himself standing at his own grave.